Okay, we are... There we go. We are live, June 5th, 2025. The title of today's live stream is Musk and Trump Falling Out, The Madness Continues. And when I say the madness, I'm referring to this ongoing parallel storyline between the Netflix show, The Madness, and the state of the world today. Basically, that movie was foreshadowing the post-election America with I think a number of characters that we could say specifically correspond to real-world characters. Trump's not explicitly in it, but there is a tech billionaire who's associated with Musk, and it seems to be tracking. So we'll talk about that. In fact, let's just go into this right here. Last time we were here, I was talking about the issues I was having with buffering and the internet connection, and I found this software called Speedify, which will stabilize and improve performance. So we will have audio again. So I'm going to play a clip here. This is the news media noticing the eerie similarity between Netflix and reality with regard to the train derailment in Palestine, Ohio.
This story is one of the weirdest coincidences ever.
Eerily similar.
Uncanny similarities.
At times identical to the Ohio train derailment timeline.
People living in eastern Ohio evacuated their homes last week following a train derailment and chemical spill that sent toxic chemicals into the air. The crazy thing is, they did the same thing for a fictional disaster film a year ago. The movie is called White Noise. It came out on Netflix in November. It stars Adam Driver. The premise of the movie is this: a freight train derails and explodes, and families have to flee the toxic fallout. The film was shot all over Ohio. It features extras in vacation scenes, including a family from New Palestine. Then, last week's train derailment in real life and fire happened less than a mile from their home. They had to leave for real.
So, in other words, extras from the movie White Noise were evacuated a year later when the real thing happened where they live. Eerie coincidences, eerie similarities, more of the usual. And we have some pretty solid refutations against the claim that this is the result of some kind of a simulation. And briefly, we often talk about the significance of what we see on Netflix and how it relates to specifically fake news events. And this is just one of probably 1,000 examples that we have documented since this channel started. But it goes deeper than just the movies, because some people will say, well, these directors are inspired by the simulation to prophesize or something. They mystify it, but they can never explain, those who mystify it, the concurrence of drills and simulations that happen around the same time in the same areas. And this was something that was commonly observed by people looking for, quote, false flags. They always notice there's drills nearby. And the drills happen to be as consistently aligned with fake events as does the entertainment media, excuse me. So in other words, if the universe inspires the directors to somehow reflect the zeitgeist and predict things, then what explains these Department of Homeland Security exercises? Nothing. Nothing but the more mundane truth that it's more sensible to look at entertainment as information propaganda. And the news, entertainment and news are basically two forms of propaganda. One is entertainment propaganda, one is news propaganda. And that's not just oversimplifying it. The entertainment, the enjoyment you get out of this stuff is really a side effect, or it's because the art is that good and it covers up or transcends, but beneath it all has a singular purpose, and we're constantly pointing this out. And it's going to become very clear with the madness. So we'll get into this. Trump tweeted this morning. Elon was, quote, wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody wanted. He knew for months I was going to do, and he went crazy. So Musk went crazy. So Musk responds, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT." I had to triple check this to make sure it wasn't AI. So there is this very public spat between the two, and it's only intensifying. Trump-Musk alliance explodes. What began as a high-powered partnership between Donald Trump and tech titan Elon Musk has spectacularly unraveled into a war of words, public jabs, and political fallout. The rupture, simmering behind the scenes for weeks, exploded into full view. Now, this is being shared here. Elon Musk alleges Trump is in the Epstein files. Now, this isn't new information. Everybody knows the QAnon's new. But they said he was going over there in order to expose it or something. So the cope is really off the charts right now as the QAnons are trying to explain this rift. Now Musk says, "This just gets better and better. Go ahead and make my day." Eric Berger from Guy Space said, "This would be the end of the ISS and simultaneously provide no way to safely deorbit it." So this rift between Trump and Musk may imperil the ISS. Musk was being paid. He was getting a contract for $843 million to deorbit the thing. So now it's going to land somewhere randomly. Musk said, "In light of the president's statement about cancellation of my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately." So he's already breaking this down. Now, Adrian Dittman tweeted, "The world's greatest fiction writers could not have conceived a timeline like this." And Musk says 100% laughing emoji. Now, it's funny in a way. Musk must be laughing ironically, because what we're experiencing right now, this quote timeline, is the result of the world's greatest fiction writers. We often describe this as the metascript. Our history is written in advance. That shouldn't be hard to grasp once you understand the purpose of fake news and how it directs the news narratives and tends to dominate, and how fake news unchecked aggregates and bends our history in the direction of the worldview monopolists' agenda, which appears to be some kind of dystopian ideal. Like they have this, our future is going to be post-apocalypse, but it's going to be probably better for Gaia. We got to bring down the West first. But here's Musk basically reveling in this. Now let me get into the part where it connects to the madness. Well, here's something else too. Trump said, "I would have won Pennsylvania regardless of Elon. I'm very disappointed with Elon. He knew this bill better than anyone. And he only developed a problem with it when he found out I was going to cut the EV mandate." So here's what Musk said, and this is where it starts to tie into the madness. "Without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House, and Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. Such ingratitude." So here's Musk basically admitting that, or in his opinion, he won the election for Trump. So now let's go back to the madness. The madness came out right before Luigi shot the CEO. And it's about this tech billionaire who basically helped steal the election. So the tech billionaire in the madness did not literally steal the election in the sense of directly rigging votes or ballot boxes, but he orchestrated a massive disinformation campaign, manipulated the political outcomes to serve his own interests, and effectively corrupted the democratic process. Now, this is what is being alleged about Musk and his involvement here, that maybe he didn't rig the machines, but he may as well have, the disinformation campaign. And the madness is a reference to the disinformation that drives people to these political extremes. Disease X, as I've called it before the madness was on Netflix, I said that X is essentially the disease X. The WHO warned us about, the big virus that's going to shut the world down, but it's going to be a mind virus. It's going to be the hate-filled narratives and memes that are let loose on X that provide the, I guess, pretext for censorship that the public will accept, because it's making people go violent. The madness. So in the madness, this billionaire is taken out, and this is the part that kind of reflects the Luigi story. It's about the corrupt billionaire fascists versus the people, and the shooter is like an anti-hero, and they protect him. Now here's some details from the series. The character, the tech billionaire, is revealed, and he again corresponds to Musk. Not hard to unpack this movie. The main character is pretty much Don Lemon. You've got Laura Jennings as a proxy for Laura Loomer, which comes into play here. So this tech billionaire is revealed as the silent majority shareholder of a conglomerate called Revitalize, and he's the mastermind behind a conspiracy involving disinformation, murder, and political manipulation. In fact, he's the one who orchestrates the murder of the Laura Loomer character. So I'm like, this is getting interesting. So he paid extremist influencers like Mark Simon, Brother 14. Now, Brother 14 would correspond to Stu Peters, or more actually, I'd say, visually, the character Mark Simon, who goes by Brother 14, he's the head of The Forge, this online group. So visually, he looks like Stu Peters. But his function and everything else is more like Nick Fuentes. And Nick Fuentes is the head of America First, and The Forge is like America First in this series. Brother 14 is a reference to the Hitler slogan, 14 words, which Musk referenced when he retweeted this Hitler quote with 14 American flags. So it's all very much, again, tracking with real life. Now, he paid these influencers online to, quote, sway millions of followers to promote certain Senate candidates. Now, Revitalize is the name of this company, so it's election interference. It says that they controlled the narrative around American politics by spreading propaganda, manipulating public opinion. This was all done to ensure legislation favorable to their business, such as deregulation, impact on democracy. So this is what the show's about. The tech billionaire in the madness using disinformation, media control, and violence to manipulate the election's outcome. Now the next part, Laura Jennings. So Laura Jennings exposes this. Now what's interesting is she exposes that the CEO was involved in election tampering, and she dies. She was killed by a nerve agent that made her death appear like a heart attack. And when I saw that, I thought, this is interesting because this character is basically a loon like Laura Loomer, who's connected to politics, and she's exposing all these things, which Loomer is known for. Now, about a month ago, Loomer pointed out that Twitter is a crime scene, and that Jack Dorsey probably committed treason or something by facilitating election interference. In The Madness, her corresponding character is about to expose the election corruption, and that's what gets her killed. So if Laura Loomer suddenly dies, it's Musk's probably agenda. It's probably his hitman or whatever. So that's the overlap between The Madness and this the present state of things. So this Musk falling out with Trump is just making things all the more interesting. Other things we'll talk about today. Okay, here's something. We've been talking about the significance of the Space Needle as a structure, as a monument, and as the centerpiece, the iconic centerpiece for the next 9/11, as projected by various predictive programming elements that we've been noting. More recently, the overlap between Final Destination and the opening of the Skyliner. So these correspondences are intriguing because it's not just the movie and real life, but it's like we're watching this movie real time, but now the Space Needle itself, the structure, is actually having this opening ceremony. And I'm looking at this thing as, okay, wait, this is a monument. And I looked into it, and it was designated a monument on 4/19/1999. Now, why is that significant? We have been talking about the significance of this domestic, violent, extremist 9/11 event centered around Seattle, and all the hints pointing at the Space Needle. So this has been this building up, this story's been building up for some time. And I had said before that this is going to connect with with McVeigh and Waco. So Waco, Texas, is where you had the ATF burning the Branch Davidian. That's where Alex Jones got radicalized. That's where McVeigh got radicalized. McVeigh retaliated for the Branch Davidian thing on the anniversary date, which was 4/19, with the Oklahoma City bombing. And then Trump, of course, kicks off his campaign in Waco the day that Netflix releases Waco American Apocalypse, reinforcing this overlapping theory, this story between the white nationalist martyr of, Dave Koresh and these martyrs, McVeigh, and the Trump campaign. So as this story is progressing, I'm looking at that date, 4/19, and Trump's on trial on 4/19, and that's when Max Azarello set himself on fire outside the courthouse. And he had this manifesto that was against the fascists, and he said Trump and Clinton are the same, and it's all about the money, and it's class war. So it's kind of an echo of this Luigi thing, this class warfare thing. But the point of it is he sets himself on fire on that specific date. And I thought that's got to be significant. So I'm looking at this date, again, 4/19, highly significant to the white nationalist terror attack in Oklahoma City. Inspired by Turner Diaries, of course. Turner Diaries is a huge part of the story as well. Well, the Space Needle's opening date was on 4/19. As far as, not opening date, but its date that it was designated a monument. And I thought, okay, 4/19, 1999, just another connection here. Again, it's all in this script, which just like with 9/11, just like with 3/11/2020, these big psyops have a buildup, a lead to it in the entertainment, in the news, in various events, what we call predictive programming, but also concurrent. You can ignore predictive programming and hand wave it away as just cherry picking, but you can't do that with the real time synchronized releases of movies. And the Butler, Pennsylvania thing is one of the best examples of this. For example, I just watched Mickey 17, which was filmed in August of 2022. 2 years ago, this movie's filmed, or 2 years before Butler, this movie was filmed. And it has a Trump-esque character who gets shot, the bullet grazes his cheek, leaves blood on his cheek, he poses for the cameras, just like Trump did. But this is recorded before. And the director insists the character's not based on Trump, but he thinks you're an idiot. If you've watched it, the guy said Ruffalo is imitating Trump. And there are deeper levels here to it, but just on the face of it, you have a Trump-esque character talking about colonizing an all-white planet, so xenophobia, just like in Machete, the senator, Trump-esque senator, is shot at while giving a xenophobic speech. But he gets shot, and after he gets up, he demands the cameras focus on him so he can basically do like Trump did, the whole fight, fight, fight thing. So my point here is that it's not just one. And what gets intriguing too, and Jurassic Liars gets into this, is the birth dates. Mark Ruffalo being born on JFK's death date. And then significantly too, at the same exact time, another movie came out where the president gets shot at, and that was Captain America. Harrison Ford as president. Harrison Ford's birthday, 7/13, the day Trump got shot. So lots of fascinating connections when you mind map it out that you can't just hand wave away, nor can you attribute it to just, a coincidence, like, oh, just nothing to see here. No, actually, there's a lot to see here. And the evidence is piling up and has been for some time. And again, anybody who is still stuck on the notion that there is not some kind of human agency behind these connections hasn't done their research or homework, and has to also explain the concurrence of DHS and other agencies doing drills coinciding with the events. There were like 88 drills being conducted on 9/11. We're talking simulations involving 1,000 police cadets, simulations involving terror attacks, planes hitting buildings on that same day. And this is not like an anomaly. Look at the London subway bombings. These were preceded by a BBC documentary about terrorist attacks, maybe hitting a subway. Now, in the subway where the terror attacks happened, there were drills going on in the exact tunnels for bombs. So the exact thing that happened was actually being simulated by a mass casualty drill at the same time. Meanwhile, it's on the BBC predicting it more or less. And these things are noted. The media says eerie coincidences. No, you guys aren't prescient. You're the producers. You're writing this stuff. I'm going to watch the movie called The Mountainhead. I'm going to watch Mountainhead after I leave here tonight. Pika Luna said, although I'm only halfway through watching Netflix's new film, Mountainhead, it appears we are watching concurrent programming live in real time on X right now. Tech bro factions versus world governments. Again, this is, I'm going to have to watch it and see, but if the number one movie right now on Amazon is basically mirroring the rift between Trump and Musk, what are we to think of this? Why would we think that we're in anything other than The Apprentice season 47? Did Trump ever cease being in a reality TV show? As Musk retweeted here, the world's greatest fiction writers couldn't have conceived a timeline like this. No, that's exactly who's writing this. It's the greatest directors, the greatest writers. We've been talking about the meta scripters. By the way, I've noticed that nobody's taken my advice. I've been saying since 2021, right before the January 6th thing, quarantine the 33-year-olds. They're causing all the problems. This would have stopped the QAnon shaman from running into the Capitol with the spear, and all those people chased him. January 6th wouldn't have happened if you had just quarantined that guy. And there are so many examples of shit-disturbing 33-year-olds. Martin Luther was 33 when he did his thing. Down the line, it seems like anybody of historical significance just seems to be that age when they do something really disruptive. Well, a 33-year-old University of Michigan lab researcher has been charged by the U.S. authorities with smuggling dangerous biological pathogens. So you may have heard about this fungus that was released into the U.S., some kind of bioterror attack. Just another 33-year-old who should have been locked up. And these aren't coincidences. These are markers. Like, you could, once is a coincidence, maybe 2 times, 3 times. I mean, at some point, you got to say there's a pattern here. No, we have been noting patterns for so long, it's ridiculous. It is clearly some kind of internal communication. So if you're in the know as we are, you're like, oh, it's a hoax. Like that van that ran over those people in the UK. I took it seriously until I saw 33s on the side of the van. They might as well just put PSYOP Entertainment Complex. So if you're in the know, you recognize it's an op. I wonder how Q is going to cope with Trump and Musk breaking up like this, and Musk calling Trump out for being on Team Epstein. He's like, Trump was at Epstein Island. But in my opinion, QAnon is mostly bot-driven anyway. I was thinking about it. What is the ratio of genuine crackheads to shills, as in government agents, to the actual people hidden in the Q pipes? And I think it's 17-1. I think for every legitimate QAnon believer, there are 17 bots or agents. We are joined by Let's Go, Benton, Thirst for Truth, Andrea Penguinotti, Tracy Benton, Wake Soto, T. Rose, Derek Nichols, Mango Penguins, Diana South. Lord Laney says, painting the laundry room to IPS. Maybe I'll add an occulted penguin. I've been working on my penguin tag. I have this one-line unicursal penguin that I do, and I got this massive blue marker. And I want to start tagging. Now, I'm not going to tag things illegally, but like, you know, the idea of just a simple tag. And I have been tagging on these priority mail labels that I use as stickers, but I've been working on something like an IPS signature penguin wrench tag, which I might make into possibly a decal. X-Pac had made one before. I want to get one just like that. But I want to have the lettering, IPS. All right, let's continue. Joined by Penguin on a Raft, Ears Up, Ollie Goering, Josh Lebsock, Deprogram Truther, Clockwork 113. Burn the Corporate Fiction says, I tend to think reality is similar to the movie Dark City. Either way, everything allowed onto the public stage is scripted Baconian play. Dark City was written into the subtext. It's part of Megalopolis. So Megalopolis has a Trump-esque character who's, again, this movie just came out, shot in his right eye, and he survives the assassination attempt. And then Megalopolis, Megalon, it's Magalon, Make Rome Great Again. But in that movie, it's a combination of Matrix, Dark City, and then Francis Ford Coppola's original script. Like, they imbued it. Because the movie was originally going to come out pre 9/11. But it seems like they've added a lot to it. He had a lot of time. There's some original 9/11 2001 footage in the movie. But the design authority, who would correspond to what we call the metascripters, in Dark City, the ones who can freeze time, who are orchestrating big events, they come out in these black clothes with these black fedoras. They're like the strangers in Dark City, but they're called the design authority. Very Saturnian in their imagery, and it's all by design because it's all about control of time and space. And the main character in it, Caesar Catalina, at the very beginning, he's on top of a big clock tower, constantly standing on a clock. It's all about freezing time, time control. And another interesting thing about it, when I saw it, is Adam Driver looks like Neo from The Matrix. And people often talk about Dark City and The Matrix side by side. They're kind of relevant to each other. They cover the same areas, but what is The Matrix is really about the place that we're in, this space. Dark City is about time. And in The Matrix, he's got Morpheus, Neo and Morpheus is like leading him through this thing, explaining how this place works. In Megalopolis, Adam Driver, who looks like Neo, is being driven around by a character played by Lawrence Fishburne, Morpheus. And in a very Morpheus-esque way, he enlightens Caesar about the nature of time, just the way that Morpheus would talk about the Matrix. So it's kind of interesting that it's this similar to the Matrix, but it's about time control. Constant Elevation, thanks for joining. Unmitigated Mind says, I'm not actually sure. I'll have to follow up on your comment. I'm going to try to open up phones. Yeah, phones are open. 505-510-4226. Andrea says, ever considered stickers featuring a QR code that points to your website? That's a good idea. In fact, I was going to put QR codes on the PSYOP cards, but I don't think I did it. But I do think I'll probably put them on a sticker. I'm going to include one sticker with each pack. So just a quick update. The PSYOP trading cards are in production right now. They are a glossy front, grayscale back, rounded corners, and I have some Magic the Gathering trading cards I used as a inspiration. And so what I'll do is I'll put them in the same sleeves, but a number of people bought 12 packs, and once those are all sent out, I'm going to order the next 12. So then we'll have a total of 24, and I'll do this every single month. So every month we're going to add 12 cards and put them into circulation. And those orders will be processed as soon as they arrive, and I'll keep you all abreast of it. But then in each of the packs, I'm going to include a sticker, and I'll make sure to put a QR code on there. Probably for autohoax.com, which has the hoax report. At the very bottom, that's where the cards are. You'll see them listed there. Burn the Corporate Fiction says, there's no way to objectively prove it, but I know there is a design authority. No, we have objectively proved it with mind maps. For example, James Cameron, metascripter. Thomas Clancy. Alan Moore. I would even say Jordan Peele for sure. Stanley Kubrick, one of the greats. And the Nolans, Christopher Nolan, Jonathan Nolan, metascripters. We're talking about directors who are consistently represented in the creation of predictive programming. You know who gets metascriptor credentials? Barack and Michelle Obama. The Obamas are metascriptors. Look at Leave the World Behind. Total insiders. They know the game. That movie was kind of I think it was almost like it was, in a way, a confession. There's a section in that movie called The Curve, where the character who I think would represent Obama is explaining to, Juliet Roberts, her character, just explained to her this thing called the curve, about how he could know what's coming by reading the hints, the signs, the indicators. Yeah, Stephen King. Thank you. Stephen King's another one. We have a long list. We have to come up with, maybe I should just do an ebook and I'll list all the different metascriptors that we've documented and the various movies that they're connected to and the psyops that are connected to their movies. So James Cameron is directly connected to a couple of, for example, LA riots. You can connect him to 9/11. You could connect him to the Cop City riots where BLM and the environmentalists were against the cops, and this environmentalist got martyred, where the police literally shot through the palms of his hands like stigmata. But what I'm pointing out here is that you can find that there are directors who have worked in enough of these to where there's no plausible deniability. Like they are consciously producing propaganda for the government. And when I say the government, I don't mean America's government. I mean the only government, because there's only one. In my opinion, there is only one government. The idea of different competing ones, yeah, maybe, but there's something higher than all of them, a higher authority. There is a worldview monopoly, and its interest, its version of history transcends everything else. That's why there's no real debate over the veracity of the claims of the mass media. The media says this terror attack happened. Nobody on the world stage is discounting it. The left wing never calls out the psyops that benefit the right. And like, think about this. If the right wing really believed, I'm talking like the fringe, the Alex Jones types, if they really believed that the left was trying to take their guns by faking these attacks, then this wouldn't just be something exposed by small conspiracy channels. It would be exposed by the big gun promoting channels. And exposed, I mean exposed at the level that we do it, where they provide credible, or they'd go to people like Jim Fetzer, and they would go on a big talking circuit. Armalite would not have paid $73 million if they had any chance of preventing that. And it'd be pretty obvious, it'd be pretty easy to point out the media fakery, the propaganda films that are presented as news. Because that's kind of what we're looking at. I mean, I look at it as propaganda. All right, moving on. Lizzie N from Lizzie Revelation. You know, sometimes I see these people on X who are arriving at the right conclusions. She says, Alex Jones and David Icke are controlled op shills. Both serve the same one world ruling global establishment, which provides their scripted good cop, bad cop roles on all the world stage. This is actually pretty good. The way she explains it is Jones is, quote, counter-narrative, and Icke is a critic of narrative and counter-narrative. Icke is positioned as an outsider, but I'd say he's a faux outsider. So he's slightly outside of the official counter-narratives, but he doesn't go so far as to call everything fake. So like him or not, the fact of it is David Icke will promote the idea that people really die in these events, but these are satanic sacrifices. MSM plus. And he'll never step back from that. And that is simply either he's insulated, or B, he is part of a controlled dialectic. I mean, take your pick. So Galactic Zoo said, maybe everybody's controlled opposition, even you, Liz. After all, it doesn't matter how much research one does if everything is a convoluted maze of never-ending conflict narratives. Now, my response to Galactic Zoo is, well, first of all, I agree with them. I often say this, that if you are following along with controlled opposition talking points, you are controlled opposition. If you're drinking the Kool-Aid at Alex Jonestown, if you're hitting the Q-pipe, you're controlled opposition. It doesn't matter that you're not getting paid for it. If you're a media advocate and you're defending the event as real, what does that make you? It makes you a media advocate, your mainstream media. But the controlled opposition would be the counter narratives that get a lot of airtime, even though they are censored or banned or blocked. they still get airtime. They're reacted against. But my answer here was, the only people who are not controlled opposition are those who take the off-world stage perspective. This is an alternative to the controlled opposition. And this only includes those who call out media fakery and fake deaths, and who aren't tied up in politics. So raise your hand if you think you're not controlled opposition. But then if you're not calling out the fakery, or if you're promoting the idea that people really die at these events, then put your hand down. You are part of the problem until you let go of the fake death tolls and the illusion that politics is going to solve anything. Are you going to follow a politician that pretends like all the fake stuff is real? Like, it's just a bad habit at this point. There's nothing sacrosanct about it. I mean, I understand appearances and how it sounds to people who are in the box, but I don't really care about the opinions or the perspectives of the brainwashed. Like, they're not really in a position to say anything. So, for example, when it comes to the final experiment in Antarctica, I watched the whole thing and I thought, these individuals are true believers in every fake news event. Even the people who went to criticize NASA. They're NASA critics, but they believe all the fake stuff. So that puts them in the box. You really do have to step outside of the... And it's not a cliche. There is quite literally a box that people are in. And I think it's like the TV, the black cube, the darkened movie theater. You're in this box for all intents. It's the Truman Show, the internalized Truman Show. And if you don't include in your assessment the existence of media fakery and psyops, you're never going to have the right answers. What's up, Rocky USA? Estevan, thank you for joining. Kevin Mooring says, anyone that's propped up is controlled op like Loomer. Yeah, the idea that Laura Loomer or James O'Keefe are somehow outsiders doing real journalism is a joke. It's risible. Laura Loomer has been a reality TV show character this entire time. She's not rogue. She's not an outsider. But if you look at the storyline here, it all tracks with the madness. And as I pointed out before, she has been associated with the predictive programming elements of the Trump assassination for a long time, since 2017, when she jumped on the stage. So they're performing Shakespeare in the Park. It's Julius Caesar, and Julius Caesar is Trump. Now think about this. You got Caesar dressed up like Trump, and he gets murdered on the stage, and Laura Loomer jumps on the stage to stop the show. Now, she said this is going to cause real violence. And she also pointed out the Atlantic magazine that we pointed out, foreshadowing the Trump shooting before it happened. So she's been a part of this, but not because she's trying to expose it. If she really was, she would be reaching out to the people who have noticed this stuff. But no, it's to co-opt it and to make it look crazy. That's how they operate. Rocky says, life is truly a stage. And exactly. The world stage, when I say world stage, I'm referring to the model of the world that the consensus accepts. And whether or not people watch the news doesn't make a difference. Some people say, well, I don't watch news. I don't pay attention to politics. Doesn't matter. You've tacitly given your approval to the history that we're living in front of, that we're all coexisting on the common agreement that such and such happened yesterday. And then you just go back. How far back we agree, we can maybe dispute. People have disagreements over how history played out. But we can all agree that in the last 60 years, all these events are agreed to have happened. And you have disagreements about some events, but generally speaking. And when you look at that consensus version of things, the world stage, as it's accepted, you can see that, well, clearly it's not objective. It's been bent. And I've also pointed out that the objectivists have never been objective because they filtered their entire philosophical framework through media as though media itself were objective, which obviously it's not. And even if they're not telling a lie and they're just reporting on the weather, there is something implicitly not deceptive, but disconnected from reality in the way they frame things and what they don't pay attention to. So the selectivity is part of the process. Now, I rewatched Joker 2, and I have a couple of takeaways here, because a lot of people remarked on how a lot of people thought it was bad. And it's almost like they wanted to, like iconoclasm. Like perhaps they created too effective a character, maybe this Joker character, they wanted to destroy it because he was a powerful symbol of some kind of rebel, maybe some, like this Luigi character. But maybe they didn't want to glorify it because it seemed like they destroyed that character with Joker 2. But there might be a reason for it. I'm not going to get into the background of the story, but I came across something suggesting that he's not the real Joker, but this was the inspiration for the person who became Joker. I'm not really into the comics of it. But what I'm pointing out here is that when they were filming Joker 2, it overlapped with the Trump trial. So Trump's on trial on 4/4/2023, which happens to be Heath Ledger's 44th birthday. So you have Joker 2 being filmed. And it says here, Joker 2 steals the show as Trump court drama plays out just steps away. So there were protesters in support of the former president, and then this is actually just what we talked about a couple years ago, but they were filming Joker 2 outside of the courthouse, and people driving by confused the mob from the movie for the crowd seeing Trump. Now, this overlapping is part of the bigger story here, because the Joker has been consistently associated with the assassin. Like, think about this. In Joker, he shoots Murray Franklin on TV. And this is what I think Joker 2 might really be foreshadowing. The televised headshot. So Joker, in the first Joker, he shoots Murray Franklin. But that character of the Joker is based on Travis Bickle from The Taxi Driver, played by De Niro. So De Niro plays both the assassinated and the assassin. And as the assassin, Travis Bickle, he is the inspiration for real-life assassin John Hinckley Jr. to shoot Reagan and Brady. Again, Brady died 33 years later on 8/4 from his head wound. Just insane. But Hinckley was born on JFK's birthday, which is also kind of another interesting connection here. But the connection here, though, is that Joker represents the assassin. So I'm watching Joker 2, and it's all about this trial for the shooting of the person on TV. So I thought this could be a movie foreshadowing the person who does the deed, the next Oswald. Because the public's going to be divided. Is he justified? Is he a victim of society, or is he a murderer? Very much like the Luigi story. Similar in many ways. So I'm kind of wondering here, because something else too, the Luigi story, if you remember, after Luigi shoots the CEO, there were numerous cities where they had Luigi lookalike contests. Well, in the Joker movie, the whole thing was after he made the stand as a clown and shot these rich guys, other people started this Kill the Rich movement with him, and they all put on the clown masks. So the Kill the Rich movement was played out in real life after Luigi shot the CEO, with people dressing like him. So dressing like Luigi, dressing like the Joker. Eccentric View says he's based on characters from King of Comedy, not Taxi Driver. Yeah, I haven't seen King of Comedy. I need to see that one. But De Niro plays a lot of interesting roles in connection with this future shooting. Because remember, after I saw De Niro outside of the courthouse with Trump derangement syndrome, frothing, I'm like, this has got to be an act. So we start looking at his movies. And this is before Butler. And I find Machete. I'm like, look, in Machete, he plays this xenophobic senator. And while giving this speech about immigrants, he gets shot at. Now, he doesn't die, but then his Secret Service shoot the shooter. And actually, I think his ear gets covered in blood, which is kind of another foreshadowing. But then we go back to Butler. So when Butler happens, Trump was quite literally talking about illegal immigrants when he was shot at. My point here is that De Niro has been used to embody these roles that foreshadow Trump. And this is not a new concept here. I call them predictive programming proxies. So you have various actors or roles that have been put into the popular imagination that will later be attached to somebody on the world stage. A case in point, Biff Tannen. Donald Trump is in his Biff Tannen stage. Well, Biff Tannen is a character that was written based on Donald Trump. Kevin Mooring says, Illuminati card, eat the rich. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I mentioned the 419 burning of Maxwell Azrello and his manifesto about the rich. Well, he had a shirt on that said, eat the rich. And he was hanging out with Newt Gingrich. Eat the rich. Unmitigated Mind says, life is staged with infinite unseen rules, customs, psychological triggers, and built-in reactions that are nuanced and extremely difficult to control. The world stage tries to influence. Yeah, I think what they do is they exert what I call a worldview monopoly. And this is part of how, this is mainly, I think the purpose of it is how you rule millions or billions of people. How do the few control the many? And this is an extension of what religion used to do. I think media has supplanted religion, that God constructs and the terror of the gods is how you control superstitious minds. And the modern mind is very superstitious, but they've updated the superstitions and they've branded them as science. I'm not anti-science, but there are some things that are science fiction that have been introduced, or there are concepts that are eschatology but dressed up as science that do in fact scare the public into compliance. If you don't believe me, look at 2020, or look at the amount of money people pay to combat global warming. I'd say Gaia is a God construct, and Gaia is mad because of what we're doing, and Gaia might retaliate, so we have to mitigate our impact. Planet killer asteroids, fake, science fiction. God constructs, like, okay, well, our priesthood, if we pay them enough, might be able to save us by deflecting one of these things. But it's all about the dynamic of the ignorant masses kept in the dark and the enlightened priesthood, and the relationship of the passive recipients of media corresponding to the news. And for the most part, most people live in that box that I call the mainstream mediation. But a lot of people see through it, but they don't get the big picture because they don't reject its claims. They're not off-world stage. So they say, well, this picture doesn't make sense to me. There's got to be more to it. If they lean right, they go to Trutherville. They take red pills. Now the world makes sense. There's a big conspiracy. You got to wake people up. Most people are asleep. But if you lean left, you're going to go into woke town, where you have a similar ideology, and you see the world's under the control of this evil group, but they just disagree on the group that controls everything. But both sides in the big box have the same essential worldview. You could call it woke. And I would make the argument here that there's really no fundamental difference when you really look into what that means. Woke isn't a new concept. It's almost 100 years old. And it has to do with coming to consciousness of the real power structure and how you have to fight it because you're oppressed and you didn't know it. So the woke concept is sort of like in the Matrix, how the world really is. When they reveal the Matrix, the red pills will show you, but most people can't see it. And so you're one of the awakened ones, and you have that burden of being awake. So there's these versions of being awakened to the reality of the world. And yeah, they completely disagree with each other on the causes, but they have the same structure. Like these are the awakened ones who have to somehow get the masses to adopt their views. I've said for a long time here, I don't believe in waking people up. Let them sleep. I don't think you can actually wake people up with reason and facts, because they weren't lulled into this Truman Show with reason and facts. It's a belief system that there really is no opting out of. You're not really told it's a belief system. We're kind of led to believe that media is inherently objective, even if people lie about, or they have their own agendas, they have their bias, but the camera doesn't lie. Well, no, absolutely. The camera is a liar. Media is a good liar, though. Good liars don't lie with every breath. They lie strategically when they have your trust, when they can get away with it. Enoch says Joker 2 was released on August 4th. Okay, see, that's another connection here between the shooters and this. Again, we've been saying, the Joker's character has kind of like, you have one Joker Sarnav Boston bombing. If you remember when the Boston bombing happened, they referred to him as the Joker. That was his nickname. His name is Joker Sarnav. Well, his death penalty was reinstated when Batman came out on March 4th. But we've noticed this overlapping between these villains, these Batman universe villains, and these shooters, these chaos agents like the Riddler. The Riddler was definitely associated with Q. They were really making the question mark seem like his symbol, this symbol of this chaos agent. But the Riddler, very much a Q-esque character, sort of formed the basis for this Thomas Crooks. If you look at the way they look, it's the same face, same glasses. Thomas Crooks, the Trump shooter, looks like the Riddler. Not a coincidence. The Joker stuff, though, goes far back. We've been looking at these overlaps. Then you have Ryan Routh, that guy who was going to shoot the guy on the golf course, who was going to be a shooter. And he was very much kind of fitting into this kind of archetype, this Joker-esque archetype. They even said that he laughed in the back of the car when they picked him up. Tracy Benton says, what's your opinion on the so-called black fatigue psyops? Yeah, I've seen that. I think there's a lot of 4chan culture that they've mainlined through X. And they really heightened it with the Austin Metcalf, Carmelo Anthony thing. And Carmelo Anthony's being charged with first-degree murder. So he's not getting away with it. And then they bring out that Shiloh Hendricks psyop where GoFundMe platformed a lot of this rhetoric that shows that each side is willing to really just call out the other side as the enemy, as unfixable. It's pretty divisive, but I think it's all a psyop. Like, do you remember when Jordan Neely got strangled on the subway? That was preceded by a good 9 months of X being flooded with video of subway violence. And I was like, why is every single influencer on the right pushing subway violence and saying get out? Even Jack posted it, get out. The phrase get out was going viral on the right. And it was like get out of the cities is what they were saying. So you have this urban versus rural where these divisions are very, very calculated. And the subway symbolizes the lower class in class warfare. In the Joker movie in particular, that's how it's represented. So that's why in the subway, the rich people are killed. So this drama on the subway with Daniel Penny and Jordan Peele plays out where he strangles this guy that wasn't hurting anybody. He was mentally ill. He was the Michael Jackson impersonator. He wasn't armed. It's unlikely he was going to kill anybody. But Daniel Penny strangles him and takes him out. And he's lauded as a hero. If you remember, Daniel Penny had the highest paid Give, Send, Go. And Give, Send, Go was the one who promoted the Carmelo Anthony versus Shiloh Hendricks psyop, where each side's raising money for their vigilante, for their hero, or their anti-hero. But Daniel Penny was a right-wing hero. Kid Rock gave him a lot of money. MTG said that he's the vigilante, that New York is Gotham and we need a Batman. So the right-wingers made Daniel Penny into a celebrity, just like the left-wingers made Luigi Mangione into a celebrity. So Luigi represents Joker, the underclass. Again, Joker starts off in the subway fighting the rich. Daniel Penny represents the rich, defending them against the evil poor, the violent poor. And it's not a coincidence that Daniel Penny gets out as Luigi goes in. And then where does Daniel Penny end up? JP Morgan, after hanging out with Trump and JD Vance at that Navy game. Kevin Mooring says, Penny, Lincoln, come on. Yeah, that's another connection there. The Penny, as we've been talking about in Lincoln, Civil War, Headshot, it's all encoded into the story. And what's interesting too about this Daniel Penny thing is that right-wingers were saying, get out of the cities, get out, get out. Well, Jordan Peele's movie Get Out has a character that looks like Daniel Penny, who, like Daniel Penny, is a lacrosse player with a penchant for strangling people. And Jordan Peele noted that his movie Nope was inspired by the George Floyd killing. The spectacle, which again ties everything together here. Get Out, Nope, George Floyd, Jordan Neely. What you have here, in my view, is Jordan Peele likely directed that particular psyop. All right, let's see. Kevin Mooring says Riddler was played by Jim Carrey, same guy in the Truman movie. Yeah, Jim Carrey's an interesting one. We talk about meta scripters all the time, like the directors and the writers whose work are reflected in the fake news events, that they provide the foreshadowing. But we need to also look at the actors. It's always interesting to see the actors and the roles they play, how they too seem to be involved in advancing the psyop narratives through their roles in movies. I mean, this is just propaganda analysis. There's nothing mystical about it. Diana Southard says, I drove past the barbershop with a huge queue, and where we go one, we go all on the front window, 5 foot by 7 foot. Yeah, I thought Q was gone. I thought Q was over, but Trump has been sharing Q stuff, so it kind of brought it back. So anyway, Joker 2, I think it was hard to watch in many places. I don't know if it was a bad or a good movie because I'm not really into the genre, but it was gritty. But I will say that it seems to be foreshadowing for how the public will respond to this event that has been foreshadowed. And the significance of it being released on 8/4. Well, 8/4 is one of these numbers that has been heavily encoded into this Trump event. As we have talked about, Jurassic Liars has exposed this extensively. In fact, we were talking about this Riddler connection to Thomas Crooks. Well, 84 days after Butler, Elon Musk and Donald Trump are there in Butler, and they're giving this speech. And I'm like, it says 84 days after the shooting, which happened at 6:11 p.m. And they're hanging out in Butler. New York Post calls Trump Braveheart. But anyway, 8/4 has been consistently associated with this general theme of this headshot. So for Joker 2 to be coming out that day. And so at the same time Joker 2 came out, I'm going to the theater and I see a poster for Beetlejuice. So the Beetlejuice sequel, Beetlejuice 2. So I'm noticing a connection here. So I'm seeing green hair and a Joker-like character, speaking of Beetlejuice. And then I see the Joker, green hair. So I'm thinking there's got to be something here, some pattern here. Well, I watched Beetlejuice, and in the underworld, and again, this came out last summer, there's a dead Donald Trump in a golden suit with his lapel pin waiting in line in the netherworld. And I took some screen caps of it and I sent it on Twitter to Tim Burton and I said, hey, it looks like you put a dead Donald Trump in the afterlife in your movie. What interesting timing. And my tweet was stricken for copyright violations. It's the first time I ever had a tweet taken down, and it was for pointing out this Trump-looking character in this Beetlejuice movie. But it just had me thinking, though, about this green hair Joker character. And then, of course, this Joker-esque character, the Chaos Agent. Thomas Hughes became a member. Blue Wrench. Awesome. Like I said, I am putting together some content for members. And if you are a member, you can get into the Discord server. And I've added a few things to the Discord server. And I'm still developing it. But I have this bot, this AI agent that will go through and review the last 4 hours, write a synopsis, which you can download as a PDF. You can read it there, or it has an audio file. And it will provide an infographic of relevant topics, most persistent commenter. So in other words, if you aren't hanging out in Discord 24/7, but you want to stay abreast of all of our research, you can just go to the summary, and it's a bot called the IPS Stenographer. And once I have the bot perfect and it creates graphics that I like, I'm going to bring it over to Gilded. I set up another bot on Twitter. It's called AutoHoax. And this bot automatically responds to anybody talking about chemtrails with a link to my book, The Chemtrail Hoax. And someone had sent something to me today. They had challenged, more or less on my behalf, they suggested to Crow 77777 that he debate me on the existence of chemtrails. And I think that's a good idea. I would like to debate anybody, but specifically Crow 77777, on the existence of chemtrails. I don't know why he promotes these things. To be honest, I think there's a point where you lose plausible deniability for certain claims, and I don't think he can claim to actually believe it. So hopefully he's open to a debate. I'll have to make a formal video where I challenge him, and then we'll do a countdown on how many days it takes to get a response, because no response is a response. Okay, so we've been talking about this build up towards Seattle. There was just a raid on a home in Lacey, Washington. Authorities discovered a significant amount of Nazi paraphernalia and a large cache of weapons and military gear. The most notable detail was the presence of a red Nazi flag with the swastika and an array of confiscated firearms, ammunition, and body armor. The reports described the residence as being surrounded with Nazi paraphernalia. Ideological leanings of the suspects are pretty obvious here, but basically a Nazi white nationalist group had their place raided. And people in the comments are saying it looks kind of phony. Like there are creases in the flags. Like they just pulled these out of the Amazon boxes, that these aren't real and it could be a movie set. Which, yeah, it's probably true. But it's just trending right now, AP News. FBI discovers guns, armor, and Nazi stuff in Washington State. And Washington State is where the base emerged. So in 2018, this white nationalist group has been the subject of a lot of reports, apparently plotting to use AI to help them understand how to attack the power grid. So now another reason to fear AI. But this group is called the base. And I talked about 6/11 symbolism attached to the domestic violent extremist presence. Well, Al-Qaeda means the base. So I'm like, oh, the base, meet the new base, the same as the old base, white Al-Qaeda, vanilla ISIS. You know, we've talked about this inversion, but it's just being highlighted right now. Here's some more. Helicopter and crew from the 160th Special Operations Aviation, 4th Battalion, operations doing training in downtown Seattle. Okay. Black helicopters over Seattle. Says here, they're both flying low. It's all for training. So there's some training going on in the area. So again, drills. You should look at drills as a form of predictive foreshadowing. Okay, here we go. Sheriff of Thurston County. Now this is 50 miles south of Seattle. TCSO and Army CID executive search warrant on white nationalist extremists. 35 firearms, grenade launchers, and explosives seized. This is in the city of Lacey. They had a warrant as a result of a violent robbery and theft of military weapons and armor, and the suspects were Nazi white nationalists. An FBI SWAT team executed the warrant, and they seized short barrel rifles, an MG-42 machine gun, grenade launchers, explosives, body armor, ammunition, ballistic helmets, surrounded by Nazi paraphernalia. Multiple rifles were staged at windows throughout the residence, and the suspects were booked. So Army, CID, and SWAT. Not unexpected. By the way, June 2nd was the birthday of our mascot. You may have seen this card going around. 6'2". When this think tank started, we were inundated by trolls. Like, here we are trying to have a chat, and at that time we had a huge number of people. It was like 400 people in our live streams, which meant a lot of comments flying by. And this was before they had limits. You could limit the number of comments. I mean, this is an earlier iteration of YouTube. So in order to control our own chat room, I gave everybody wrenches, and everybody would take the penguin mascot. So we just had this uniformity where everyone's got the penguin, everyone's got the blue wrench, and if you don't have the penguin, you're out. If you don't have a wrench, you're out. And after a point, we just had hundreds of mods built up in the channel, and it was always the wrench that facilitated the think tank itself before we had a separate platform or memberships or anything. We made it all happen live, but we at the time recognized that there's going to be a lot of censorship in the future, obviously, and one thing we should do is make use of the power of the meme. So we had to come up with a mascot that represents what we're really about here. And we took the penguin as the perfect symbol of the off-world stage, because they're at the bottom or the perimeter, they're outside of it. But for many other reasons, the penguin made perfect sense for what we do here. And as you can see here, the penguin, and I'm not really sure where it came from. Like, I don't think anybody ever took credit for it. Ted Stryker says, I have a Fepe sticker on my truck. He kicks ass. Well, we saw the frog meme pushing the alt-right, pushing this body of ideas, challenging mainstream media. And I liked that trajectory, but then it hit a wall when it reached the White House. And I realized, okay, that's an inorganic, not real grassroots movement. But the idea is there, the power of the meme, of a cultural rallying point, something that if somebody sees it, they know what it embodies, what ideas are encoded into it. So what is encoded into this thing? Essentially, the idea of being, of course, the media critic and outside the box. But his birthday was June 2nd, 2017. So how many years is that in penguin years? 33? I think he'd be 33 then. All right, let's move on here. Oh, yes, but one more point here. And I hate to say it, but yeah, we actually took the frog and gave it a beak. And so it's kind of derivative. And whenever I ask Grok, like I took this and I gave it to Grok and I said, would you please make me a birthday card? And it turned it into the frog. Like, if you take our penguin and give it to Bing, give it to Grok, give it to ChatGPT, it will turn it into the frog. And I don't like it. And I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe a lot of us have to start using this meme and putting it into things using AI so we can add it into the knowledge base. But whenever it sees this, it automatically interprets it as Pepe the Frog, and it's certainly not. Okay, now this is getting interesting. The other day, we were talking about The Rock and Travis Scott and Cody Rhodes. This is a slight WWE rabbit trail, but if you remember, World Wrestling Entertainment has consistently been a vector for predictive programming from 9/11 onward. But look at this. We had this incident at that Civil War Memorial Park where the guy with the bleach blonde short hair is setting people on fire. And Synchromorpheus said he looks like Cody Rhodes. And he noticed this setup in the scene where it looked like it was something straight out of World Wrestling Entertainment. And it looked like Captain Lou Albano and Cody Rhodes. Not a stretch. And I had said at the point here is that if you're not viewing current events through the lens of WWE kayfabe, you're off your rocker. Well, Cody Rhodes is the one who was hit in the ear, and he was given a black eye. Now, there's some fascinating symbolism built into this, But essentially it's this. The Rock has a belt that has the words on it, Cody's soul, and then it's 6/11/15. So he has the 6/11 date on this white belt that he beats Cody Rhodes with. And again, this is World Wrestling Entertainment stuff. And here's Cody Rhodes with a black eye, supposedly deaf in one ear. Now, the ear and then eye is the sequence that we're noting here. And this character looks like Trump. He looks a very Trump-esque character here. The suit, the blonde hair. But now, here's The Rock beating him down. So again, the belt says 6/11. He gets hit in the ear. He loses hearing in his ear. Trump was shot in the ear at 6:11 p.m. And then The Rock doing the job itself here, beating him. As Jurassic Liars has pointed out, The Rock has this Elvis association that we could probably get into. But my main point of it here is this really bizarre story about a belt that he hit Cody Rhodes with the date 6/11 on it. And it's a Trump-looking character. So the ear, again, just strange. And I want to also point this out too. This is just kind of a side note. I mentioned the other day that Lee Harvey Oswald had worked at Riley's Coffee. Listen to this. Lee Harvey Oswald reportedly told Adrian Elba, the owner of a garage near the Riley Foods plant, that he expected to get a job at NASA at the McLeod plant in New Orleans. So he thought he was going to work for NASA. And some of his coworkers did move to go work at NASA facilities or contractors at that time. So he also believed, and he said this to Adrian Elba, that he was going to work there. So I'm thinking, isn't it interesting here? This is what I pointed out the other day, that Oswald thought he's going to work for NASA, but he ends up on the grassy knoll. And if you look at this from the context of the JFK assassination and Apollo 11 being psyops, and Kubrick being a director in both of them, it starts to make sense. Maybe Lee Harvey Oswald did go work for NASA. But NASA is not what we think it is. That NASA encompasses the entire mind war, including all of the psyops above the Kármán line and below. Assassinations, terror attacks, and fake space. Which means that Oswald likely did get the gig, but he didn't get assigned to the fake moon base. He got assigned to the grassy knoll. Just a little trail here, but I thought that's interesting. Again, if you look at Kubrick connected to NASA and the JFK assassination. Now you have Oswald connected to the JFK assassination and NASA. Now, we were talking about this fire attack in Boulder, Colorado, and it was on Pearl Street, and it's a Civil War memorial. So you got Pearl Harbor, Civil War, and now the Holocaust. A Holocaust survivor was among those burned in the terror attack in Boulder. So you see how they overlap these various events? Holocaust, Civil War, Pearl Harbor. And the same day, Russia is attacked. A bunch of their planes are destroyed. Whether it really happened or it's CGI. The headline on Drudge was Russia's Pearl Harbor. There's a terrible Pearl Harbor movie that came out, by the way, right before 9/11. Okay, one more point here connected with this thing. This is the Cody Rhodes thing. So we're talking about this significance of this character looking like Cody Rhodes. So you got that already. He looks like Cody Rhodes. He sets some people on fire. And then Cody Rhodes is the guy that got his ear wounded. Now look what happened to the guy. His name was Mohammed Solomon. Mohammed Soliman, the criminal alien terrorist behind the Boulder attack, has just been released. So they release him. I believe he got deported. But look, the mugshot was released. His family's, I think he and his family are being deported. But here's his mugshot. What do you notice? His right ear has a bandage on it that's only slightly less ridiculous than the one that Trump wore. So Cody Rhodes, ear wound, 6/11, Trump, ear wound, 6/11, the visual similarities between Rhodes and Trump, and this Rhodes-like guy at the Civil War memorial ending up with this ear bandage. Again, not quite sure where this is going, but as we often do here, we're just looking at the media big picture and what are they conveying. And this is, again, it's all just very unusual, but it's scripted. It's theater. Linda Curtis says Kennedy was all about space. Right. And Jackie Kennedy was all about filmmaking. 2 months before the JFK assassination, they were making a home movie where the Secret Service were involved, and they simulated killing JFK. And there's a scene that we haven't seen this, but the guy from Vanity Fair who did the story has seen it. There's a 16-minute video, a home video, where JFK is playing dead on the ground covered in Heinz 57 ketchup. Like, why haven't they released that? You know, it's like the JFK files. They're going to release it. They're going to release it. The only thing worth releasing so far has been that, and we've only seen a few still shots. And the Vanity Fair's article about JFK faking his own assassination has this shot that he compares. He says, this looks like the Zapruder film, the angle. And you got the vehicle down there, the Ford Lincoln, and it was like, wait a minute here. Were they rehearsing? That's what I think. HLG says Cody's father was the American dream. Okay. Really? I'll have to look into that. Cody Rhodes' father. I know there's some deeper levels of symbolism here. Thomas Hughes says Elvis drumped JFK in the Pompadour. Yeah, what's with the Pompadour? And I can't unsee Elvis's profile whenever I look at Washington State. Thrustazar says 33 Band-Aids. Yeah, at least. At least. The guy has at least 33. Well, I actually know someone who wore 33 masks. Posted it on Twitter. It looked like that. And blood wound on the cheek like Trump. Right. Well, I don't know much about wrestling other than what people point out to me. But there does seem to be many examples of these stories that are kind of cryptic. And again, the 6/11, this is again what it says here. The Rock whipped Rhodes with the belt. Reports indicate that Rhodes suffered a black eye and a busted eardrum. So a busted eardrum and a black eye. Now, again, we talked about the significance of the ear and then the eye. Trump just had his ear wounded. So we're waiting for this next one. And I kind of think Jay Leno, we talked about Jay Leno. Remember, he had his ear burned off and then he had the big eye, the black eye after he fell down the hill. That's all foreshadowing the sequence of it. And then Musk made this bizarre joke about it's all fun and games until somebody gets shot in the ear or the eye. Yeah, if you want to call in, phones are open, 505-510-4226. Phones are open. I'm testing out Speedify, and it seems to be working. I haven't had any major examples of buffering. All right, let's go through my Twitter feed. Again, we're talking about the Elon Musk and Trump fallout. Where is that going to lead to? And if you follow me on Twitter, also follow my bot. The bot is AutoHoax. And I'm going to do some content related to AI. So, for example, there's a chart on the screen here. If you look at this graphic here, this infographic, it's describing 3 forms of what we would term, I guess, here we go, concurrent, predictive, and drill. So these would be like 3 forms of media synchronization. Let me go ahead and get this phone call. So you have the concurrent stuff, real-time entertainment, aligned with fake news. You have the predictive stuff, the stuff that happens in advance, foreshadowing. And then you have the drills that are concurrent with fake events. But I made this infographic in about 30 seconds using ChatGPT, and I'll show you all how to do this stuff. Hey, what's up, caller? Can you hear me?
Yo, Tim, it's me, Kevin Moore.
Oh, Kevin Mooring, what's
Hear
up?
me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
I just wanted to tell you, I was going to type in the chat, I'll just tell you. So, Elon, he got all of his money because his dad was digging up emeralds, right? So his dad was digging up rocks, and they're turning Elon into the rock, like turning him a heel, against Trump right now. Do you see the connection?
Okay, the heel. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, let me get it. Let me actually.
He'll be the bad guy. Like, you're good.
Well, okay. So the Rock though. Okay, so I went to go see the Elvis movie, and the trailer was a movie where the Rock is Black Adam, and he has this lightning bolt on his chest, and then it opens up with the Elvis as a child with a lightning bolt on his chest, and we were talking about the significance of the Rock, Rocket Man, Starman, and Musk as Rocket Man. So that there is some sort of a subtext here. So I think you might be right. So Musk being set up as some kind of a heel, and he's in a position here where he just threw Trump under the bus. What do you think about him saying that Trump was at Epstein Island? I mean, that's a pretty, I don't know, a pretty significant allegation there.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like wrestling. We all knew from the jump that these two were going to get into it, and one of them was going to turn on the other. But they turned Elon into the bad guy, which is a heel, and Trump could be a heel too. They could come out laughing at the end together. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, but so you think this is contrived? Like this is a fake breakup?
Oh, totally.
Same.
More distractions, more theater. That's it.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to go see Mountain Head when I go home. But somebody sent me a message, and they said everything that's happening right now between the government and the tech bros is happening in this show that just came out on Netflix or Amazon. So I'm going to go check it out and see. That would be another indicator that this drama is fake and scripted.
Well, have you heard the reports that there's a volcano getting ready to explode off the coast up by Oregon and California?
I heard
You know
about
what I'm
that.
talking about?
I heard about
So
this.
would,
They're preparing for something.
so wouldn't that be the beast from the sea, like fucking JL keeps talking about? And if it causes like a tsunami, it could take out the Space Needle. It could take out the whole coast. The way they keep talking, I'm just saying.
Well, okay. Well, you have the Russian Poseidon that could take out a coastal city. And then just the other day, there was this article and the story going around how this comic book predicted the Fukushima disaster and tsunami, the 3/11/11. And that right now, it's predicting something for July of 2025, and it's causing vacationers to divert from Japan. So anyway, that's in the news right now, and I'm thinking, okay, Beast from the Sea has been alluded to in a lot of ways. The Kraken, Hunting for Red October, and now this. And I think Poseidon has been in play for some time. The Odyssey storyline has been in the script since Butch and Suni went to space.
Well, if you haven't noticed, they tried getting everybody to move out of Portland and Oregon by making it so crazy and shit. And then everybody's fled from California, and they made it hard for businesses to stay there. So everybody, they got the message, has left the West Coast, including Joe Rogan. You know, the only one probably left is Sam Tripoli. But I'm just trying to tell you that something bad is really going to happen over there. I don't know how. It all plays into this number magic, like fucking JL keeps saying. I mean, so Trump's birthday is 6/14. He's having that big parade in New York. You're supposed to have, they were saying today, 48% of the military. That's like 800,000 military in New York. These people have to get to New York before, it's going to take a while with like logistics. So they're going to be there stationed already during 6/11. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. Good point. Good
They're already
point.
going to be there.
Okay, so 6/14, Trump's birthday, 250th anniversary of the American military, major celebrations, major parades, and I think another thing about it is that there's this national protest organized called No Kings. And this entire JFK assassination storyline that we've been talking about, King Kill 33, frames it as this ritual killing of a king, which comes out of Fraser's Golden Bow. It's this ritualistic killing of Osiris. And recently, Trump was compared to a king on the cover of Drudge, where they had him with a crown of tacos. But corn tortilla, corn is associated with Osiris, this regenerating, reborn god. So I'm this sacrificial king. So anyway, yes, 6/14 is Trump's birthday, and it's the No Kings protests. And that's going to be putting a lot of people into play on the lead up to 6/11. Absolutely.
The only reason I know all these facts is I got married on 6/14 years ago. But 6/14 is also Flag Day in America.
Right. Well, it's Trump's birthday. It's Flag Day. So 6/14 is definitely something that people are looking at. But 6/11 is in between now and then. And 6/11 is a date that Jurassic Liars has consistently pointed at. And it's not just one or two things. There's every 6/11, there seems to be some kind of a buildup or something that reflects what he's been saying, but it seems to be reaching a crescendo. I'm not making hard date predictions, but it would be on brand. If you look at the significance of 3/11 and the significance of 9/11, there's no reason to just hand wave away 6/11 as, oh, that's a ridiculous assertion that we might be able to preempt the event and comment on it before it happens. No, we do it all the time. But the significance of Final Destination showing the Space Needle in the way it did, just as the Space Needle exhibits the Skyliner from the $100 million Century Project, the timing of that to me is like, this is on par with the pre-9/11 buildup.
What about the Penny character in Final Destination? The kid that collects the pennies? Daniel Penny? I mean, it's too much, dude.
Yeah, well, that's another point too. If you haven't seen the movie, everyone, it's that the Penny Abraham Lincoln is central to the whole story. Anyway, hey, thanks for the call very much, Kevin Mooring. And so call back anytime. We're on basically a countdown to 6/11. Thank you again. All right, phones are open, 505-510-4226. Leo wanted to call in. So anyway, this graphic on the screen, I'm just trying to elucidate these concepts. That there's a difference between the real-time released entertainment that just happens to mirror the fake events on the news, and the stuff that happens years in advance. And a third category that you have to include are the instances of concurrent drills. Hey, what's up, caller? Can you hear me okay? Hey, what's up?
Hey, dude, this is Jurassic. Let me shut off the other radio.
Sure.
Sorry. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, man. So what do you want to talk about?
Okay, I just found out that the Seattle Space Needle was designated as a, I guess it was designated as a monument on 4/19/1999. And I'm just saying, this underscores the connection to domestic violent extremists, because that's the Waco date. That's the Oklahoma City date. That's again, 419 is a highly significant date, and that's the date the Space Needle was designated a monument. So I wanted to get your comment on that.
Well, yeah, and that's very important. And also that Martin Luther King, who was killed in Memphis, Tennessee, where Elvis lived and died. So the Elvis the King had the king whacked, and Seattle's in King County. So what happened is they made King County officially named after Martin Luther King on 419 also. I can't remember the exact year, but I think it was 2000 something, but I can't remember. But that was also 419. And of course, which we've mentioned many times, is that your connection with the Oklahoma City bombing, which I've mentioned 100 times, is that Timothy McVeigh is, executed on 6/11, the guy from the Oklahoma City bombing, right? Is that what you were going to talk about, 419?
Yeah, and this is good. So McVeigh executed on 6/11 at the age of 33. Trump is shot at 6/11 in 33 seconds. And then King County being named for MLK. Trump was in jail, or he was arrested on 4/4, which was the 55th anniversary of MLK's death date. And this was after he was already compared to Christ and turned into something of a martyr. But that's intriguing. So another King reference. But yeah, that's what I was pointing out.
And also, it was Martin Luther King Day when he was inaugurated. Also, yeah.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't catch that one.
Yeah. And the connection with Timothy McVeigh to Elvis, besides the 6/11 stuff, is that it was MT his name, because Elvis was born in Tupelo, Mississippi, which is TM, like Timothy McVeigh, and Elvis died in Memphis, Tennessee, which is MT, and that's why his name is the word lives. Elvis lives is because his tomb is empty, like Jesus. See, they say Jesus' tomb is empty. Get it? That's the initials, MT, TM, which is 33. MT, TM equals 33.
Right. I've heard that breakdown. That's actually really solid. Another one, maybe you could remind us. You talked about the significance of Muhammad Atta, like Muhammad attacks 9/11, and then you've connected the same breakdown of the ATTA with Seattle. See attack.
Right. Yeah. That's how I came up with Seattle being the next target, is because Manhattan, they were calling it. No, the first pilot that struck the building, supposedly, his name was Atta, A-T-T-A, and I was like, wow, what a name. First two letters are the same as the last two letters, right? And it was just 4 letters. I was like, what is this, right? I had never seen a name like that. And he was 33 years old, right? And so I saw that name, then I realized Manhattan has the A-T-T-A in it. It's got the Atta also. And then I realized they were calling it 9/11 attacks. Attacks has the ATTA, and then I realized that it was American Airlines that hit the Twin Towers. That's AA and TT, American Airlines initials, and TT for the Twin Towers. That's another ATA. I was like, what is this? And then I realized that Seattle has the ATT in it. That's how I figured it out. And what was the missing A, because it needed an A, it's ATT only. And the A is the Space Needle itself. It looks like a big A, right? So that was the breakdown of that. But what solidifies it is that the 9/11 phone number was created by AT&T the same year they constructed the towers.
Nice one. Yeah, 9/11 became our emergency number 1968, 33 years before 9/11.
And 33 years after Elvis's birth.
Nice. Yes. Speaking of the Space Needle, so this structure has like these 3 columns, these 3 pillars. And then you have the 3 pillars in front of the International Hotel. And then a couple weeks ago, a boat from the Mexican Navy hit I guess it was the Brooklyn Bridge, and it had 3 masts. And so I'm like, okay, 3 masts, and it hits the bridge, and this disaster. And one of the deaths was a woman named America. What do you think about that? You see the boat?
Well, I would have never caught the three.
Yeah.
That was a good catch. I would have never caught that. But the fact that her name was America, I heard that. It's so ridiculous. I mean, beyond,
Well, I saw too.
Great,
The people falling from the mast looked like this Final Destination poster with people falling into a skull. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. The falling people, Space Needle in the movie, America dying, and then the three masts and the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, to me, I'm like, this has got to be. And then, of course, the boat always somehow symbolizes, I guess, the Titanic, the sinking ship. So anyway, looking at that big picture gestalt, I'm like, okay, that seems to be a pretty clear message.
Yeah, and did you hear about that King of the Hill guy who got shot? I know you probably talked about it already.
I've heard. I haven't seen King of the Hill. I haven't watched a lot of it, but I did see the story and the contention around it. What's your take on it?
Well, first of all, he's got the same initials, which is a code that they use for all these, unbelievable stories, if you know what I mean. Anyway, so he gets shot in the head. Okay, and you got the king word, King of the Hill, and by the way, the word king equals exactly the word hill, same thing. But anyway, so you have the king in the name. It wasn't the guy who does he's not the star of the show, whoever this guy is. He's just one of the characters, I guess, on the show. Red Corn or something like that. So you got the red connection. I don't know. But the point is the guy got shot in the head on a show from the King, and guess when the reboot, because this show hasn't been on for 15 years, guess when the reboot is coming?
Don't tell me it's coming on August 4th.
Yes.
No.
There it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look it up.
That's
look it up.
No, I believe you. I mean, just like this is okay.
No, but I want you to look it up.
Okay, last year, this Amazon movie series called Caped Crusader came out. This Batman, and the end of the first season, this character named Rupert Thorne, very Trump-like, has an assassination attempt where Batman throws his bladed boomerang at him, and it cuts his right ear. That's the end of the season, and the new season got picked up. Guess what date?
August 4th.
August 4th. Yeah, here we go. King of the Hill revival. There's that word revival of 8/4. Yeah, so 8/4. Just like Joker 2.
Yeah, there you go. Reviving.
Yeah,
reviving.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
One more point. I want to get your comment on this one. So James Comey, JC, tweets out an image of 8647, which we've talked about, 8647, a reference to killing of the king or assassination of President 47. But that was exactly 8,647 days after 9/11/2001. Like, what do you think of that?
You know what? I mean, I forgot all the things I said about it, but I know that there was a 666 connection. What was it now? I can't remember. It was what was it, man? I can't remember now. What was there was a 666 connection to this, and I can't remember. Go ahead and talk.
Well, I know that you had pointed out that 8647 you could actually extrapolate from that 611, just combining. I mean, like we saw on the hat, 4547 gives you a 911. But James Comey claims he didn't know that this would be construed as a threat, but that's bullshit because he's an author. And he's written some spy thrillers. And one of James Comey's books is about this person basically putting out hits indirectly on right-wing figures through stochastic violence, which is exactly how this would be seen.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And he's got the JC initials, obviously. Here it is right here. I just remembered. So the 8 looks like an S. If you notice it, it's different than the other 3. The 8 was different. So, and it looked like an S, like a snake. If you looked at it, the 8 looked like an S from far away.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So it was different color, right? Than the 647. So the S is the 19th letter. 19 plus 647 is 666.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see. And yeah, it definitely looked like an S. It looked like an S, so you'd say Seattle 611.
Yeah, that's another 6/11/6, and then the 47. And Elvis has been dead 47 years. Trump is the 47th president, right?
Yes. And today I mentioned this movie called Megalopolis, and for people who haven't seen it, at the very end, it has this celebration of Saturnalia, and it's got an Elvis impersonator singing "America the Beautiful" wrapped in an American flag. "America the Beautiful" was the Trump inauguration song for his first term. So this Elvis Trump thing is consistently overlapping. And I was pointing out how Cody Rhodes was hit on the ear and given a black eye by The Rock. So what was The Rock connection with Elvis? If you could explain that to people here.
Well, yeah. Not only did The Rock dress as Elvis in front of like a bunch of military people, and he sang a few songs as Elvis songs in front of the military. He entertained as Elvis, and also he has one of the biggest collections of Elvis memorabilia, which was even used in the movie that he was in called The Game Plan. It was actually most of his memorabilia, his Elvis memorabilia, was in that movie. And there's a bunch of other little things that they have with The Rock, but the biggest one obviously is the 611 belt with Cody. Well, by the way, his dad, right? Cody Rhodes' dad died on 6/11. So the American Dream dies on 6/11. Then his son, American Nightmare, came about.
Okay, that's making a lot of sense now then, because I was talking about the ship and the person named America dying and the 3 columns hitting the Brooklyn Bridge, like the Titanic. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? The American Dream, and that's the whole message here. To me, the Seattle thing, the symbolism of it, the iconic symbol of the Space Needle, it's about like the One World Trade Tower. It's about destroying this conglomerate, destroying this thing that we just call the West collectively, but destroying this world view, the American Dream. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, by the way, before we end because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just want to let everyone know why I'm saying that it's going to be an attack. It could. Who knows what it's going to be on June 11th? All I know is the attack is the only thing that makes sense, because if it's just another earthquake, even if it was a 10-point earthquake, it's not going to change the rest of the world. But a supposed nuke, because I don't believe in nukes, but I believe they have bombs they can plant everywhere, But so that would be the only thing that would change the world and start stuff that would involve everybody. Do you get what I'm trying to say? It would make no sense if it's just an earthquake or a tsunami. But the initial attack would cause more cataclysmic events, like a tsunami or an earthquake, or or volcanoes going off. So it could be like 3 days of cataclysmic events, and then on June 14th, it might settle down on Trump's birthday. Do you get what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah, and as far as, okay, there's a lot of talk about earthquakes and this stuff. Whenever I hear this stuff, it makes me think, okay, they're just putting their people into place to fake the thing, whatever's going to happen. Like, anytime there's attention drawn, I think they're just setting the stage for something. But as far as the idea that 6/11 would be the date, it's just very on brand. Like 3/11, 11/3, 9/11, and there's so much buildup. Like every 6/11, we're watching, and something happens that is always just, more or less predictive. But I think you might be onto something.
The last time, and I think the last time they had the ports closed or something like that. I can't remember now. It's 6/11, but whatever. It doesn't matter, man. Look, when it comes to predictive programming, they don't have to do every single. They don't have to do it. They just do it to mock us. You know what I mean, with the predictive programming stuff.
Well, Trump's birthday, 6/14, is Flag Day. And a lot of this stuff is, like, for example, Francis Scott Key, the bridge that was hit. We were talking about the significance of the flag, the national anthem. So, Flag Day has a special significance here in this entire thing. And I remember that movie Don't Look Up had this comet about to hit the Earth. And they said 6 months, 14 days. So Trump's birthday has always been kind of brought into the story, but there's a lot of military being brought up right now. So I'm just looking at this with.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Yeah.
I mentioned that about that I was mentioning that for a long time now, that he's going to bring this military here. He's got to get them here way before 6/14. So he's probably bringing them in like a few days before. So probably on 6/11. That's what I was saying, that they're going to have all these military people everywhere. But somebody was saying New York. I didn't hear that it was going to be in New York. I thought it was going to be in Virginia or Washington. Where's it? Why are you guys saying New York?
No, I don't know. Let me check where that's at. But I do know there's this thing called No Kings. The No Kings protest is going to be on that date.
Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't even know about that. But that's a good. But I didn't. So that's what I'm asking. Is it going to be in New York, or is it going to be a
major military parade for June 14th, Washington D.C. The event will feature 6,600 soldiers, 50 helicopters. It's going to be from near the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, and onto the National Mall. It will include military reenactments. Okay, it says 200,000 spectators.
Yeah. So there you go. So you got all the military in Washington D.C. and there's going to be a strike on June 11th. You know what I mean? I'm just saying it's right there. Everything's going on, whatever the heck.
Well, listen to this.
About to do.
It says here, the parade has drawn criticism for the cost, $45 million.
Yeah.
On Trump's birthday. So another, again, the 45 Trump connection. But that's happening. And then this big protest, No Kings, kind of fits in with this class war thing and the Luigi thing and this general sentiment against Musk and Trump. Things are reaching a crescendo here. It's like an odd time to have a parade.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to be doing a June 11th compilation stuff. So it's just a bunch of connections with June 11th, but not numerical stuff. So you're not going to be seeing too much numerical in the video. It's all going to be like certain things that happen on June 11th type of thing. So I'll be doing that. I think is going to be my next video tomorrow. So hopefully, because it's going to be a long one. It's going to be like 2 hours long, and it's going to be a bunch of 6/11 compilation connections.
Okay, well, I'm working on something too. I'm going to mind map all of the 6/11 connections that I've noted over this time and why I've been looking at that date, that number, and how it relates to all these things, and has sense. I mean, we were already looking at this, and they always give us more. Oh, we're just going to have Trump shot at 6/11. I mean, it's quite extensive.
And by the way, you know what's really freaking me out is because now it's like for sure it's probably going to happen, because all these troll channels who don't know nothing about nothing, who haven't been on the bandwagon, now all of a sudden they're saying June 11th.
I hate that.
All these.
Yeah. It happens every year. I'm like, wait, all these people suddenly come up with this, and I ask them, how are you arriving at this? And they're just like, oh, my gematria calculator. It's like, why don't you just credit the source who could offer substantial information? And so I think this has got to be another example of how there are these coordinated disinformation campaigns that these bot armies are employed to do. And it happens every time on these dates. And why would they do it on these dates? Are they just grifters who think you're onto something? Or are they trying to muddy the waters?
Yeah, well, you're going to be getting a lot of viewers, after June 11th, so you'll see. Anyway, bro.
Yeah, thanks for the call. Thanks for the call, and we'll talk soon.
Hopefully, I'll call in.
One more thing before you go. Yeah. Did you see that? Did you see that Jaws movie poster? I showed you the one from the Fantastic Four, Empire. It had EMP with the Space Needle. Did you see the Jaws one that had the word Jurassic next to Jaws?
Oh, I don't remember now. I know you probably sent it to me. That one I don't remember, but I remember the EMP one.
Okay, I'll resend you the Jaws one later.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, it said Jurassic on it, and I thought that's just too weird. All right, I'll talk to you later.
All right, cool.
Thanks for the call.
And Jurassic Park opened on 6/11.
What? Oh, Jurassic Park opens on 6/11. Okay.
No, it was the first time it was released was on June 11th.
Interesting.
The movie. All right, bro. Take care.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just think it's strange. Look, we've seen this many times. It's like an inside joke. They're constantly. It's kind of funny. But it seems like there's some kind of interaction here where sometimes it seems like Jurassic Liars is directly being pointed at by this thing. It was very apparent on, was it 6/11/2022 at the Washington Mall, where they had that moment of silence where the Parkland High School people were there. The father of one of the victims was there, and he looked just like Jurassic Liars. I was like, okay, we're on a 6/11 watching CNN, and it looks like Jurassic Liars is like center stage. And it is kind of funny to think about that the PSYOP entertainment complex would take note of those who are taking note of it. And it wouldn't be the first time. Some have said that, what was the guy's name? Who was the guy who chopped off his father's head? The FBI agent lost his head. Justin Moan. In fact, in Discord, they were calling him Justin Osmone. Okay, next call. Hey, what's up, caller? Thank you for calling. Is this Leo Pirate?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. You can hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. What's up, Leo Pirate?
Fantastic. The thing I just wanted to say is what I love so much about this think tank and the callers is we look at in predictive programming, if you want to even use that term, the world stage foreshadowing from a holistic perspective, not just gematria, not just films, really history and all encompassing. And I'm basically calling in to say something I had just learned from JL from a video he had deleted, but the year of the snake, we're currently in the Chinese zodiac year of the snake. Did you know that Pearl Harbor, 1941, and the destruction of the Twin Towers on 9/11, 2001, both of those are year of the snakes?
No, okay, Year of the Snake was Twin Towers and Pearl Harbor?
Yep, 1941 and 2001. Both of those are year of the snakes. But here's the crazy thing I had to call in because I just learned about this today, and I added it to my Seattle Space Needle article. In another year of the snake, 1989, King 5 Seattle, a local station in Seattle, King 5, they had aired this local comedy sketch show called Almost Live, and it was on April 1st as a April Fool's joke. They made a realistic newsbender-esque fake news story about the Seattle Space Needle being destroyed on April 1st, 1989. I have the clip, the archive of it in the article. You can see it. They just televised a fake news story about the Seattle Space Needle collapsing, falling down.
I remember watching that report, and at the time, you didn't have Twitter, you didn't have social media, there was no instant fact-checking, and so a panic could spread, War of the Worlds style, pretty rapidly. And yeah, I recall that. I'll have to watch that. And the Year of the Snake connections, I didn't know that. 1941. And 1941 was when the Pentagon construction began. And care to guess the date?
For the Pentagon? I don't know, 6/11? I'm not sure.
9/11. 9/11.
Oh, 9/11.
60 years before 9/11, 2001, yeah. Pentagon, 77 feet high.
Wow.
And the 77-foot high structure was hit by Flight 77 after it flew for 77 minutes. I mean, when you go into the numbers with 9/11, I can see why people come out of it synchromistic, why they come out of it just minds blown, because they're like, this can't be coincidence. Well, no, it can't be. But they fall for that trap of, I can't figure it out, therefore it must be a higher power. It must be something divine or simulation. It's like, no, you're in a totally mind-controlled environment is all.
Yeah, and it shows the analogy you use of like the exoteric and the esoteric, the profane and the enlightened, used often in secret societies, about how the same symbols can be interpreted exoterically to those in the box, and then esoterically for those who put out the symbols in the first place. And what it shows is long stage planning, right? Really, that's all it shows. It can be so all encompassing, so huge. It is appealing to fall into the synchromystic trap, but it is an MSM plus view. I mean, I think it's absurd that anyone could push simulation theory, thinking it's a fringe topic, when it's also pushed by intellectual, giants like Joe Rogan and Elon Musk. I mean, it's as mainstream as it gets. It's right up there with the Mandela effect. I'm surprised that it's still even being entertained at this level of media analysis where the IPS think tank is at. So it's bizarre, but the 60th birthday of the Pentagon is when it got struck. That's I'm telling you, when these events happen, we got to start singing out, celebrating happy birthdays, right? People should be tweeting out, happy birthday, Obama on 8/4 and stuff. That's what people should be doing.
This is a good point, though, is about the pre-planning of it all, scheduling things in advance. The megalopolis had the design authority, and what was their power? Their power was total control over time. And the movie opens up with the narrator talking about how empires don't fall overnight, but over a period of decades and various events. And so I think that movie was just telling us that we're witnessing the fall of Rome, and it's happening over a sequence of events: Pearl Harbor, 9/11, 2020. But there's a number of events that are symbolically representing the takedown of the West. And I think that the Space Needle and the One World Trade Tower both symbolize the Tower of Babel, this big, too big to fail structure finally toppling. And I think that that's what we're watching in slow motion. And hey, one more thing here. Did you see that NASA is shutting off the ISS tracking website on June 11th?
I saw you post that in the chat, and I was like, that is surreal. It also suggests, some kind of catastrophic event where them shutting it down, of course, they're announcing it in advance, but no one actually goes to the NASA website and reads between the lines like you do, Tim. I think it's going to be some big news event where you don't need to go to NASA's website to find that out, if you catch my drift.
And
there'll be some kind of,
You wouldn't, like, if you're planning to, let's say hypothetically that this was going to be the end of this unity above, the Tower Babel Falls, you wouldn't want somebody to go on the website and say, hey, the ISS is still up here supposedly, but we're told this happened to it. Like, I think it just seems to suggest something. And just today, with this fallout, which that phrase fallout, I think I'm using it kind of advisedly here, but with this fallout between Trump and Musk right now, Musk is talking about how he is losing all his contracts. So the Dragon is pulling out of the picture. And now the fate of the ISS. Listen to this. This would be the end of the ISS and would provide no way to safely deorbit it. So Musk was going to deorbit the ISS. Now he's not. So the ISS's existence is now being questioned today.
Well, it's one of those things where kind of like before 9/11, wasn't the Pentagon was supposed to investigate where like $1 trillion was left? We're seeing as many parallels leading up to 6/11 as we kind of did for 9/11, where they're conspicuously setting up these in the air kind of situations, which, wouldn't it be great if it was just completely knocked out of the sky and no one had to deal with it, right? Something along those lines. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And hey,
yes.
I was going to say the thing about starting my site is that I can actually have archives. I have archives of when it was posted, my articles. And the madness, I wrote the Luigi Mangione article in, December of 2024. In it, I had a section where I said, is this the future fate of Elon Musk with that character with a gun to his head? So if anything happens with this fallout between Trump and Musk, I can just point people back to the archive of an article I wrote in December of last year and be like, this happened to Elon Musk. Okay, well, happened in the #1 Netflix show, The Madness.
So it's mindwar.page. Everybody should go to mindwar.page because Leo Pirate has been documenting this. And The Madness show has that Lauren Jennings who exposes election interference and she gets taken out. Well, Laura Loomer has been trying to get close to Trump for a long time publicly. Musk was there first, and she seemed to be jealous, if you ask me, because she seems to have some kind of attachment to Trump. And now that Musk and Trump are falling out, I see her as being in a unique position to maybe take hits at Musk. But regardless, her character in the movie, this Laura Jennings, deals some kind of a blow to this billionaire by exposing his connection to election interference. And so it would be interesting to see if Loomer is pulled off the world stage now. I mean, it just seems like it follows the movie because she's officially pissed off the tech billionaire that takes her out in the TV series.
Yeah, and Loomer is definitely Team Trump, not Team Elon, right? She's against Elon. I don't follow her that or the world stage stuff too closely. I just know I've been hearing everyone's been talking about the fallout between Trump and Musk.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of talk about Loomer being uncomfortably close to Trump, and a lot of people, she's been disparaged by the media widely, and people fear her influence because she has been responsible for getting various NSA people fired and removed. And she claims that she's getting violent death threats over the phone because of the people she got fired from the NSA. So again, she set the stage for her own removal. And in the madness, she gets to be too much of a problem for the tech billionaire, and she's unalived.
Yeah, and I would certainly agree with what JL had said earlier, that whatever event might happen, again, not married to any dates. I've never been married to any dates, just looking at the data. I think it would have to be a more politically motivated thing because the madness itself was such a politically motivated show. The mind viruses that caused the madness, and how the Elon Musk character, Rodney Cranes, is basically using white supremacists to manipulate political outcomes. That is kind of what we're witnessing play out right now. And you said you're going to watch Mountainhead. I haven't seen it yet, but I did watch the trailer. And in it, these tech bros, one of the characters is almost made to make fun of auto hoaxing because they're looking at news footage on their phone. He says, "Oh, heads don't explode like that." And he's like, "Are you psycho?" Or something. So there's also a new auto hoaxing mockery that's slowly coming in. We saw that in Day Zero, the new Robert De Niro show as well.
Yeah, Zero Day, where Robert De Niro is this Biden-esque former president. There's a 9/11-like attack in New York, and some guy comes out of the crowd and says, "Nobody died, they're all crisis actors," and he starts a riot. So so we're seeing the example of they're introducing the auto hoaxer to mass audiences and teaching them, when you see this person, attack them.
Yeah, and it's priming the audience unconsciously to be prepared to deal with any of the stuff that we might be talking about in the coming months. But that's why I'm so glad I started that page. What is it, last year? I have archives to be like, oh yeah, this isn't something. And we're not being taken in with the tide, because similar to near 713, you said a lot of right-wing pundits were talking about they're going to try and take out Trump and stuff. So if around that time you started saying, I think they're going to shoot Trump, that isn't that impressive or interesting. But us, like at the IPS Think Tank, we've systematically analyzed this propaganda through various modalities for months, more than a year now, right, leading up to these events.
And we could point out, too, the people making predictions don't call things out as fake. They're like, this bad thing's going to happen. We're saying, no, they're faking events.
Yes.
They're faking history, and the next plot twist is coming up, and it's mirroring what's happening in entertainment. And we have been consistently pointing out where it's mirroring. Like, I'm like, let me watch this movie about these white vampires and the Klan, and the main character is a twin, and one twin dies bleeding in the arms of the other. And then you have Austin Metcalf bleeding in the arms of his twin to death. And that whole thing was split along racial lines because a January 6er came along and tried to turn this into a martyr for White Lives Matter. And then you had the Shiloh Hendrix thing. But we're consistently noting how the heavily promoted movies are contemporaneous with and foreshadowing of the things that happen right after. So we're looking at an echo chamber that they keep us in all the time.
And the world stage foreshadowing only works as consistently as it does with the things we pointed out because it is a world stage, meaning these are staged theatrical street theater, news fiction. That needs to be hammered in. So when we point back to the old archived articles or your old archived streams, you could say this is only possible, this isn't incredible. It's because it's propaganda. It's because we live on a world stage. All these things we are pointing out, there's nothing paranormal or supernatural about it. It's just this integrated system, an echo chamber of lies, if you will.
Right. Well, the only real conspiracy, the one that they don't want you to see, is the mind war itself, the Psy War, which is involved where you get the media fakery, but also it's PR stunts, influence operations, mass deception. That's the only conspiracy, and the conspiracy theorists miss that. They get the conspiracy. They get it's like they miss the big picture and they focus on the very low hanging fruit.
For sure, for sure. And the last thing I want to say before I head out, because I know you've been streaming for a while, taking lots of calls. Hopefully, future episodes are just as lively in discussion with callers. But because I'm also interested in the old world stage, religion. I've been studying a prophecy from the Catholic Church called Our Lady of Fatima. I don't know if you know about that, where the Marian apparition in Portugal, where they saw Mary, and they had these different visions that were given to it. And the second vision had to do with World War II. And the third vision hasn't happened yet. And it was only made publicly available in the year 2000, where they see what the children were shown, was what they saw was the Pope walking through what seemed to be like a wreckage of bodies. And then soldiers kill the Pope and all these people. If you read it, it's online. The Our Lady of Fatima, the third vision, hasn't happened yet. Lots of people thought it was going to happen with Pope Francis, but with Pope Leo, could be right. He could also be taken out in what's happening in that vision. But again, I don't believe in the legitimacy of any of these Catholic visions. I see it as more world stage fakery. And just to reiterate with everyone, I am a Christian. I just don't. I think there's value in studying false prophecies. Huge value. So when people say, "Oh, this is the beast out of the sea with an earthquake or a nuke and stuff," that's not what the biblical prophecies speak of. Jesus was not 33 when he was crucified in the Bible, but it's still nevertheless important to know the world stage application of these things. So I'm just throwing that out there.
I think you're right on with this too. Is that why would we think that the religions wouldn't be involved in writing history and fabricating the big picture that we all live within? Because that's what media has supplanted religion, and I think these things work together. It's all, to me, it's really about creating God constructs and establishing a priesthood that can interpret the will of these God constructs. Like, if we don't change our ways, this one's going to cause a flood. If we don't bring out peace, this one's going to destroy us. But religions are definitely part of the old school mass mind control, and we're simply, I think, looking at how these things overlap because they have the same goals. They're not really against one another. So you might be right. There could be some story here with regard to this new pope. Did you catch that narrative thread somebody had pointed out with the Francis Scott Key Bridge getting hit, and then the other bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, getting hit, and then Pope Francis dying, and Pope meaning essentially
Pontifex
and bridge builder. Yeah, what do you think of that?
It's so consistent because nobody thinks of like the Latin meaning of Pontifex Maximus or a pope, right? But it is still there in the collective subconscious. So when this news fiction events kind of appear, whether they're real or not, their reportage and their widespread showing to everyone, it's embedded in the subconscious. So there's so much associated with Pope Leo's days. I don't think it's going to last very long, even though Francis Key-Bridge was Pope Francis. But remember, Trump had even tweeted out an AI image of himself as the new pope when they were still in the papal conclave. And we know that at least the way the foreshadowing is pointing, Trump probably is not going to be on the world stage for much longer. And, very much likely, I think it could be the same for Pope Leo.
Well, Trump's birthday was a blood moon, and it coincided with the Babylon working. And Final Destination has that song, Bad Moon Rising. And again, we're coming up on Trump's birthday. Should be interesting. 6/14 was the birth date of the guy that Alec Baldwin shot, the director. 6/14 is the birthday of Heather McDonald, the comedian who fell and hit her head. Like, we've noted some interesting connections with the Trump birthday. Don't look up. Earth's going to get hit in 6 months, 14 days. So Flag Day, Francis Scott Key, National Anthem. There's quite a lot attached to that date. So I guess it's just a week to look forward to. It's the 5th. So in about a week, we'll hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm not saying I'm hoping for the worst, but I'm looking forward to the next major plot twist. And I think next week we may be in a completely different environment.
For sure, for sure. And again, even if literally nothing happens, that doesn't invalidate the tapestry of connections that we've pointed out regarding the nominative determinism, the consistent theming across all these media properties and stuff. It doesn't invalidate any of that. So for the naysayers out here who will be like, oh, you see, you're wrong. It's like, what were we wrong about? All the connections we pointed out before aren't any less valid. We're just making inferences, probabilistic inferences, in the way someone reading a story will be like, whoa, that character acted strange. I think they're the killer, right? That's all we're doing. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, like I'm not surprised. I'm watching Waco American Apocalypse the day that Trump, the day after, or the day before he kicks off his campaign in Waco. And I'm even reading in the trailer, there's a lot of significance built into it. The 1.6 million rounds, the 76 dead. So I'm looking at this stuff and I'm not like mind blown. Like, oh, look, this is weirdly connected. At this point, I'm not even, it's just like reading the newspaper. It's just, we're reading it at another level, a level that we're not supposed to have access to because we didn't sign our names in blood or take the oaths. We weren't given the security clearances to know how things really work. We're supposed to be part of the profane with the wool pulled over our eyes. But we stepped out of that category.
Yeah, it's like we have the perspective. We have the perspective of metascriptors without actually being metascriptors ourselves. And I think at this point, if anyone still is like, whoa, isn't that weird? Kind of strange that this film came out before that's a person who's still in the box. They're still confused.
Exactly. And that's the very perfect term for it, confusion. Because their worldview has been confused. They've conflated the map for the territory, the model for the real thing, and they're not aligned. They're only aligned superficially. But when you look deeper, you can see that no, the map is there to misguide you. But hey, thank you for the call. I'll send everybody to mindwar.page.
All right. Thanks, Tim, and we'll be in touch. So bye.
All right. And as far as me getting calls like this back to back, we can do it again. I had to put a stop on it because the browser, I just wasn't getting a great connection, but I was asking ChatGPT for help and it suggested trying Speedify. So Speedify is a new service I just picked up. And I want to say thanks to all of you who support the channel because you enable me to use all these different tools. And Speedify has improved the connection, stabilized it. I get audio again. So I might be at the point where I could do the 24/7 live streams again here. Ted Stryker says Elon called out Musk for being on the list and wished him well. Yeah, okay, so a few things. We talked about this at the very beginning. Elon Musk and Trump are having a bit of a feud. Musk called him out for being on the Epstein list, and that's why they weren't released. He's saying release the files, causing trouble. And his government contracts are being cut. And now Musk is saying something about there's no way to safely deorbit the ISS now. So that's falling apart. How are the Q people taking it? Wouldn't Q have told us if Trump was one of the bad guys? This has got to be sending them into, this is like 12D chess now. How many Ds is it? I remember it was 4D chess. That's why he's not telling us things are fake. Oh, it's 5D chess. He's just playing along to fake out the deep fake or the deep state. So Trump is playing at a higher level than us. If you remember all this talk about 4D, 5D, it's just a way to cope with cognitive dissonance. Now, we find out that Trump is a adrenochrome junkie, child trafficker, one of the baddies. How do they make sense of this? Let's see. Bug-Eye Telescope ready to find Earth-smashing asteroids. That's just out in the news. Roseanne Barr says, MAGA went down faster than AOC at Hamas blowbang. We had a good run at least. What Musk had said was time to drop the really big bomb. Could that be predictive programming? Time to drop the really big bomb. At Real Donald Trump. Trump is in the Epstein files. This is the reason they have not been made public. So we have the falling out between the two and the big bomb. I just see nuke foreshadowing. Trump Musk breakup getting nasty, battling over Big Beautiful Bill. Big Beautiful Bill. Remember Build Back Better and the BBB lowercase gives you the 3 6s. We were talking about this in 2022 where BBB seemed to be code for the Kraken. 222. Again, February 22nd, 2022. Pluto return to the place where it was when America was founded, July 4th, 1776. Significance of that, well, Pluto, Hades, releases the Kraken. So we had been looking at that number, that date, for some time. And so big, beautiful bill just kind of stood out to me. So the big bomb. TMZ investigates 9/11 terror attack. So they're bringing 9/11 back into the news. Was another commercial jet supposed to be used in the historic attack? A cover-up about the fifth mystery plane. Now, they're not going to talk about the 88 concurrent drills. They're not going to talk about the fact that the smoke you saw at the Twin Towers was military smog machines used for cover. Concealment fog. We talked about this. The Cody Rhodes looking attacker at the Civil War Memorial on Pearl Street, where he attacked a Holocaust survivor. Let's see what else we have here. I'm going through my minds.com/infinite plane society. I think we've covered most of what I wanted to get into here. Chinese nationals charged with conspiracy and smuggling a dangerous biological pathogen into the U.S. for their work at the University of Michigan laboratory. Just seems like there's a bit of a buildup here. The wife and children of Boulder, Colorado terror suspect have been arrested by ICE and are in custody. He was 42 years old. Predictably, Stu Peters called it a, quote, false flag attack. Anybody who says false flag is controlled opposition. And if somebody uses that term and they dispute that, I'm willing to debate. If you are using the term false flag, you are controlled opposition. Penguinotti says, when did killed become unalived and why? The reason why killed became unalived and the other word became grape and there's euphemisms is because these words will get you flagged. That's what I've heard, is that the algorithm will disassociate from you if you use certain words. Like you don't say shooter, you say something else. I mean, I don't care. I'm not trying to curry favor and breathe their air. I don't care about their ecosystem. We're outsiders looking in, and we have no interest in playing by their rules. Listen to this. Laura Loomer met with Vice President J.D. Vance at the White House. The purpose of the meeting has not been disclosed, but it has sparked speculation. Just pointing out that Loomer is in the middle of this drama. She's creating problems for a lot of powerful people, just like that character. And then she gets close to Trump, meets with Vance, and then Musk is pushed out. Not sure what that means. FBI Director Kash Patel, I spell Kash with a Q, he's a huge Q pusher, confirms the arrest of alleged CCP loyalists accused of smuggling an agro-terrorism agent. Now, this is an interesting point here. Austin Powers, working for the CIA, Diddy's former assistant, alleged victim, and prosecutor's star witness, Mia, took the stand and mentioned the testimony of Mike Myers in connection to the CIA. Witnesses in Diddy's trial reveals Mike Myers' CIA request. So I'm thinking here, Austin Powers could be real CIA. I think it's safe to say that any celebrity at a certain level, like this is beyond A-listers, at a certain level, if they're participating in PSYOPs, I think they have some kind of clearance. They're given some kind of status and clearance, and they're part of this ultra elite. Like crisis acting is the new Hollywood. If you're not participating in PSYOPs, you're not as high up. Lasers Go Pew Pew says, my girlfriend is listening and is probably blowing her mind. Well, I think the conditioned response is, this wasn't told to me by the officials in the box, so I'm going to disregard it. Because the mainstream mediated mind ignores the peripheral information and gets their primary information sourced from the screen. Just like people in a religious cult filter their knowledge through their particular holy book. And it's not a criticism, but it's just the nature of worldviews. And your worldview, your schema, your model of the world, your internal map largely determines how you interpret new information. And if your internal map, your model of the world says that this is an authority I can trust, this can frame my experience, then you're naturally going to exclude everything that comes from outside of it. And it will alarm people when they hear stuff like, hey, nobody died at any of these mass shootings in schools over the 17 years from Littleton to Parkland. 0 deaths. They'll find that hard to believe. And I'm like, well, we're not believers here. It's not so if you're a believer, it means you've accepted something because you've been told and you trusted the source, but you may not necessarily know it to be true. And none of the people who believe this stuff have been to the morgues, have done any deep research, have tried to verify any of it. So they're what I call low information believers. And if you believe something because you saw it on TV, you are by definition a low information believer. Unless you've done due diligence and you've gathered more intel, which is generally not the case. And what I'm just saying here is that what we represent here are informed non-believers. So what weighs more? Informed non-belief or uninformed low information belief? I would put my informed disbelief against your low info belief on any topic any day. We know more about the stories that we call fake than you know about these stories that you believe. There's a knowledge disparity. And there's this wall here of ignorance that has been put up between the general public and the what I call PSYOP entertainment complex. So the general public, even the news media itself, they're largely ignorant of it. It's not like this is common information. The conspiracy theory genre, the conspiracy communities, what I call Trutherville, have all been established by the establishment to serve it. They are the foil, the heel, the controlled opposition. Daniel says, my wife has been listening since COVID. She's used to it by now. Well, COVIDs was a big awakening for a lot of people. And I think we called it COVIDs first. We also coined face diaper, COVID 1984. We spread a lot of mind viruses that year. King Ravenna says, Mike Myers Pentaverate. Yeah, I can't recommend it. A very lowbrow humor, but maybe it's worth watching. Mike Myers did this kind of parody on the Illuminati, and they come out in these like plague masks, like penguins. I was like, are they trying to steal Penguinati? And we had just done South Pole. And we had this episode where Elon Musk is this Willy Wonka-like character sending people through this tunnel, to this underground candy factory. And in Pentaverate, there's this underground train-like thing, which seems like they stole it from us. All right, let's move on. UFC Hall of Famer BJ Penn arrested. Third arrest in 6 days in relation to his ongoing claims that his family has been replaced by imposters. Just the other day, Donald Trump retweeted something that said that Joe Biden is an imposter, that he was replaced with some kind of an android, which isn't all that unbelievable. Copaesthetic says Murphy's was my favorite. Oh yeah, we were talking about don't share masks. What a ridiculous year that was. I mean, 2020 was bad. 2021, it started to get better, but then the anti-vax became the real source of all the propaganda and the drama. And I was consistently platforming them, but also debating them. I'm saying, don't you realize that you're playing a role here, that you are the controlled opposition? And I've been vindicated since, but my interactions with them taught me something here, that it's not enough to take the anti-position. You've got the pro mainstream consensus opinion. And since you know it's largely going to be serving the interests of the power elite, you're like, well, let me be against it. Let me be anti. Anytime you take the anti position, you're part of the control dialectic. See, it's not enough to be anti-pro. You have to be anti-anti. So anti-pro. If you're anti-geoengineering, anti-vax, anti-open borders, anti-whatever, you're, in my view, in the same, well, no, you are in actual fact, in the same box as all the pro positions. Mazel says, totally insane. I was in South Korea and found you guys. You saved my sanity. Lasers Go Pew Pew says, wait, what? People shared masks? Yeah, whenever, I still see occasionally, and I don't care. I don't care what people do. I see people on treadmills wearing the mask. I'm like, well, if I really believed that the threat was so bad, I wouldn't go outside if I needed to wear personal protective equipment, PPE, a mask. It's like, well, they're very brave for going out. But you see some guy going down the street alone in his car wearing a mask, and you can rest assured that guy wears a condom to bed when he goes to bed alone. All right, let's see. Mount Crushmore says, can you delve into your opinions on BJ Penn? Saying his whole family got replaced, honestly, it just sounds like psychosis. I'll have to look into it. Who was the other guy? The one who said that he was at Bohemian Grove and he saw a bunch of people getting sacrificed and stuff. Ryan Garcia. I've noticed a lot of these UFC people are used to push all kinds of conspiracy claptrap. And so I'm kind of looking at this as either A, psychosis, or B, another one of these, what I call propaganda vectors. 250 nuclear warheads aimed at Washington, and just as many targeting London and Paris. The Western axis of evil that dared to attack Russia will be erased without mercy. Putin is holding back, but his patience has limits. There was a heavily promoted show on Amazon called Canary Black. The bad guy looked just like Putin, and he launches a digital nuke. So here's some cool Russian propaganda. Okay, so nukes. Let's talk about nukes for a second. Anytime you look at the Satan II or anything North Korea does, and they do these launch tests, just compare these missiles to Blue Origin or SpaceX or NASA launches, specifically Blue Origin. Blue Origin is easily the fakest one. NASA is a little more dramatic, and they use a lot of the cloud. It just looks like, with all the smoke and the fire and the special effects, it looks realer. But Blue Origin looks extremely fake. But it looks like they use the same special effects for these nuclear warheads. But anyway, that's being waved around at us. Rapper 50 Cent says he'll reach out to Trump to discourage any possibility of Diddy pardon. So now this is making sense. If Trump is on the Epstein list, then this makes sense. Of course he's going to want to predict Diddy. Team Epstein, Team Diddy. So this was reported as a Russian Pearl Harbor. Everyone will pay, including foreign intelligence agencies. Just noting that as we're moving up to June 11th, as we're moving up to this date, it seems like there's quite a bit of a buildup here. And the Turner Diaries story, the book Turner Diaries that inspired McVeigh, that ties into all this stuff, is essentially white nationalists getting their hands on nukes and wreaking havoc. And if you remember, less than a year ago, all these right-wing influencers were suddenly exposed as having been receiving money from a company called Tenet, which is the name of Jonathan Nolan. So the Nolan brothers are huge metascriptors. But Tenet is a company through which Russia was paying people like Tim Pool and Benny Johnson and a few other right-wingers something like $100,000 a week to shill for Russia. Now, these guys are all operatives and actors, so their money's coming from wherever, but the point of it is this was the narrative that was out there publicly. The story is there's some connections between the far right and Russia, and if domestic violent extremists were to do something, they would certainly have help. So that would explain this whole Turner Diaries scenario. This is a Tu-95 nuclear bomber jet that Russia has. 4 engines, can carry huge payloads. It says here that Russia has only 47 of them. So this is what was attacked. But anyway, 47, the 47 code. Laura Loomer said, "This is not going to end well. We are, without a doubt, going to have another 9/11. I have such a bad feeling about this." So I like to pay attention to what the people in the know are disclosing so they can, again, maintain this monopoly. It's all about monopolizing worldview, and they need their fringe characters to monopolize fringe narratives. So here we are looking at the Atlantic leading up to Butler before Trump was shot, and we're like, hey, look, the Atlantic has this imagery, the 47, the bullet hole, the Trump profile with all the blood on the side. Like, we're constantly pointing out stuff, and Laura Loomer points it out. Flozik says, "I knew C-19 was BS when they face planted in Wuhan." Yeah, those videos were great. We had people walking around and just face planting. Like, our crisis, we can complain or mock our crisis actors here, but they're way better than foreign crisis actors. American crisis actors are the best. I've seen it. I've compared them. But if you remember, the guy who first blew the whistle on Wuhan was that 33-year-old named Wee Lion. Okay, let's see what else. I think we've covered most of what I wanted to talk about. We discussed the Pearl Street Mall. There's the attack in Boulder. Again, a Holocaust victim attacked. What a perfect psyop. I mean, these are just stories. Now, I haven't seen this yet. Welcome to Derry. The trailer has a reference to Bert the Turtle, the duck and cover turtle. So duck and cover, you know, before you ducked and covered for the school shooters, they ducked and covered for nukes. That's all programming. Getting the students to genuflect before state power, before the big missile, big obelisk. Ducking and cover before this God construct. But Bert the Turtle says duck and cover. This is just kind of interesting. Then Derry High School, I see DHS. I'm just seeing a lot of buildup in the zeitgeist for something. And of course, Derry would be a Stephen King major meta scripter there. But I'm going to go watch Mountainhead and find out what I can from it. Mountainhead seems to have some auto hoax character. And then finally, I talked about this the other day, but I just want to reiterate this. Global pandemic warnings. Just like HBO's The Last of Us. I like to see when the mainstream media notices these things, but they never put 2 and 2 together. The global pandemic warning, this deadly fungus mirrors HBO's The Last of Us. Yeah, it mirrors it. But it's not just this one TV show mirroring this one potential global pandemic. Every major popular TV show has this eerie coincidence where it will somehow mirror what's happening. And people will say, well, you know, life follows art. Life's imitating art, or the artists are just inspired by real life. And they're like, no, you could say, just looking at the last few years, that life imitates Netflix consistently, all the time. That's why I call this Planet Netflix. But the accurate way to describe it would be to say psyops follow art. Because it's not real life that's imitating the movies. It's the fake events that they misdescribe as real that follow the movies. Because it's all part of a unified echo chamber. All right, we'll continue this conversation tomorrow. Tomorrow is Infinite Plane Saturn Day. Oh, wait, let me play this clip. A former Bush administration official claims there's a hidden group known as Mr. Global. And Mr. Global controls all world affairs. Now, I don't disagree. I don't know about the name. Maybe that's what it's called. But I seriously do say that there's only one government.
Farrell and I did a great 2-hour interview called Who is Mr. Global?
Mm-hmm.
And we went through every different hypotheses.
What do you mean? Can you define Mr. Global?
It's the committee that runs the world. So
Okay.
There's a committee at the top that makes all the big decisions. And my nickname for it is Mr. Global. So the question is, who is Mr. Global and why is Mr. Global doing what he's doing? Because when I look at a situation, I like to put myself in somebody else's shoes. Like if I was Danny and I was doing this, what would it look like from my point of view?
Mm. Oh, correction. Tomorrow's Friday. Thank you for the correction there. So yeah, tomorrow is Friday. So Infinite Plane Saturn Day is still going to be on Saturday as scheduled. I'm not going to play this whole thing, but she's just saying that there is this committee that runs the world. And, for a lot of people that sounds far-fetched. Like there's no way you could have some kind of, or people will say it's demonic, some kind of otherworldly thing. But I don't think it's far-fetched. The conspiracy theories that I used to listen to when I first started, focusing on this stuff, it would be like the New World Order is coming. And there's going to be this one world religion. And if we can just wake enough people up, maybe we'll stop it. But when I started to realize this total control over our worldview, I recognized that no, we were actually born into the one world religion, and this is it. Media is the de facto state church. There is a new monotheism in town, and it's this worldview monopoly. And for all intents and purposes, it is the Mr. Globe she's speaking of. So anyway, I'll see you all tomorrow. Subscribe to the newsletter. This is Chief Crow, Auto Hoax or GTFO. Thanks, callers. Thanks, chatters. See you later.